Li Su only noticed the NPC standing nearby, but he couldn't recall when it had appeared. Why didn't I sense it before? He muttered to himself. The elf beside him chuckled. You've been so focused on talking to that alien that you didn't even notice the NPC. How did you suddenly realize it was there? Li Su scratched his head in embarrassment. The NPC had been right next to him, and yet he had completely ignored it. Without hesitation, he stepped closer and observed the NPC carefully. His eyes landed on its unusually long neck. Is your neck supposed to be that long? He asked, tilting his head in curiosity. The NPC stiffened and immediately retracted its neck, clearly displeased by Li Su's blunt remark. Undeterred, Li Su pointed at the NPC again. No, seriously, your neck is still really long. The NPC sighed in exasperation, pulling its collar up in a futile attempt to hide its elongated neck. All right, it muttered, clearly giving up on arguing. The elf, watching this exchange, sighed. Li Su, do you really need to waste so much time chatting with this NPC? Li Su blinked and thought for a moment. Why had he been so engrossed in this trivial conversation? Perhaps it was simply his curiosity about this strange world. Shaking his head, he turned his attention back to the NPC. There's a passage behind that small house, the NPC explained, pointing behind him. If you open the door, you can enter another world. But be warned, you only have one chance. If you want to leave and find the next NPC, you must return to the surface at this exact location. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape. Li Su shrugged. Doesn't sound too bad. If I get stuck, I'll just find another NPC. Besides, I have my elf companion with me. With that, they stepped into the small house. It was fully furnished with basic amenities, yet it lacked any sign of life. A shiver ran down Li Su's spine. The atmosphere was unsettling. His gaze landed on the passage inside the house, a shimmering wall of light. Behind the light, an entirely different world seemed to exist, but at the moment, all he could see was a thick layer of clouds. Curious, Li Su cautiously extended his foot into the glowing wall. The moment his foot passed through, it vanished into the mist. He frowned. Weird. This seems pretty advanced. I can't even see my own foot inside. There must be something hidden in that fog. As he pondered, his mind wandered to the possibilities within this mysterious world. What if there were treasures hidden in the mist? Maybe even a Dragon Ball? His excitement grew as he imagined the power of the legendary Dragon Ball. It was said to grant immense strength, but he had yet to see one in person. He turned to the NPC. If I go in now, I can come back out, right? The NPC nodded. Yes. Just find the next NPC inside, and then locate another small house like this one. That will allow you to return. Reassured, Li Su took a deep breath and stepped forward. The elf followed closely behind. As soon as they entered, darkness enveloped them momentarily before a bright light burst forth, revealing a vibrant world filled with activity. They found themselves in a bustling market during the daytime. Street vendors lined the roads, selling various goods while people haggled over prices. Li Su glanced around, taking in the medieval-style marketplace. It was an interesting sight, but he wasn't here for sightseeing. I need to find a Dragon Ball, he muttered, his eyes scanning the items on display. He approached different stalls, examining their wares. The elf trailed behind him. Why are these things so expensive? We might not have enough interstellar coins to buy anything. Li Su frowned. That was a problem. He had never been to this world before, so he had no idea how to acquire interstellar coins. At one of the stalls, he noticed something unusual, a mask infused with an eerie energy. He could feel it even without touching it. This is made with Dragon Ball energy, he exclaimed. His excitement surged. Were the people in this world so wealthy that they could casually craft items using Dragon Ball power? He turned to the elf. Do you know how they turn Dragon Ball energy into a mask? I don't see any actual Dragon Balls here, yet I can feel their power in these items. How is that possible? The elf thought for a moment before replying, it's strange indeed. Either the people here are ridiculously rich, or there's a hidden supply of Dragon Balls somewhere. If this planet has so many, we just need to search carefully. Li Su clenched his fists. Giving up wasn't an option. He had come too far to back down now. Let's go find the manufacturer of these masks, he declared. If they have access to Dragon Balls, then they must have a supplier. I refuse to believe I can't find a source myself. Determined, they made their way past the mask stall and approached the building behind it. Inside, an elderly woman sat by the counter, watching them with an amused expression. Li Su stepped forward. Hello, Granny. The elderly woman blinked, her gaze unfocused as if she hadn't fully registered Li Su's presence. "Are you calling me boy?" she asked again. Li Su leaned in slightly, observing the woman who seemed to have trouble hearing or seeing clearly. Despite her apparent frailty, he sensed no deceit in her demeanor, just the weight of age clouding her senses. He held up the object in his hand and suddenly asked, "Mother-in-law, are you collecting Dragon Balls?" Her expression shifted immediately. She took a cautious step back and eyed him warily. "Are you here to steal my Dragon Ball? I won't part with it so easily. This is a family heirloom, meant to be passed down forever." Li Su's curiosity deepened. The Dragon Ball in her possession had a history spanning 300 years. If used correctly, it could unleash immense power, capable of creating an ethereal paradise in an instant. He knew the significance of such an artifact. Obtaining it would be invaluable. Yet, the old woman's reluctance to give it up made sense. He pondered aloud, if this Dragon Ball can create such power, its potential must be extraordinary. But I don't know much about these ancient Dragon Balls. Li Su was unfamiliar with the differences between old and new Dragon Balls, and he wanted to understand more. The elderly woman considered his words before responding. The power of a Dragon Ball is only fully realized when combined with others. While you may not yet understand how to use this one, in time, you can harness its abilities. Her words lingered in his mind, yet their full meaning remained elusive. He had never imagined that ancient Dragon Balls had unique properties, unlike the ones commonly found in this world. Li Su's gaze drifted to the interior of her home. Shelves lined with hundreds of Dragon Balls gleamed dimly in the low light. No wonder these people could create masks infused with Dragon Ball energy. It was a staggering sight. Though the elderly woman spoke little, her actions spoke volumes. She was an exceptional collector. A thought crossed Li Su's mind. Just how long had she lived to amass such a vast collection in this hidden world? The elf beside him let out a chuckle. "You don't actually believe this mother-in-law has lived for centuries, do you?" Li Su hesitated. It wasn't that he thought she was immortal, but her ability to preserve and protect these artifacts for so long was remarkable. "I just find it amazing," he admitted. "She has guarded these Dragon Balls for so long, keeping them safe. That alone is extraordinary." He had never encountered someone who had collected so many Dragon Balls, let alone an elderly woman who lived in isolation underground. Yet something felt off. It was as if she were waiting for something, or someone. "Mother-in-law, what are you waiting for?" he asked, voicing his suspicion. The woman's expression softened, a hint of sorrow flickering in her eyes. Her clothes were patched, her humble dwelling modest. Despite her possession of rare and valuable masks, she lived simply, seemingly unbothered by wealth. Li Su noticed a bracelet on her wrist, its design intricate and aged. He studied it carefully. It too contained traces of Dragon Ball energy, but fused with jade, making it an ancient relic. He marveled at her connection to such powerful artifacts. Who was she really? And why had she dedicated her life to these relics? The woman sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have simply lived too long. I no longer know what that means." A realization struck Li Su. She had spent centuries collecting Dragon Balls, holding on to them because they once belonged to someone dear to her. Her son. He had loved Dragon Balls, but one day he left, never returning. Since then, she had continued gathering them, hoping against hope that he might one day come back for them. The mother-in-law did not know if he was still alive. But as long as she lived, she would wait.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another video of FanFic Canon. Before we dive in, I want to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy our content. It really helps a lot. Also, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's get started.
The mother-in-law's son is indeed missing and has never been found, so Li Su didn't know that the mother-in-law was still looking for her son. It was all a matter of hundreds of years ago, and she is still looking for it. How persistent is this? But he had some thoughts in his heart, and he wanted to tell the mother-in-law, if you have been looking for your lost son for many years and haven't found it, he is probably gone now, and you can't wait any longer. But the mother-in-law didn't listen and firmly believed that her son would come back. She kept looking at the Dragon Ball in her hand and said to Li Su with emotion, "My son likes Dragon Ball the most, so I have collected Dragon Ball for hundreds of years just for the sake of it. Played with him, but he never came back to see me, and I don't know how he was doing. 35. The mother-in-law's words were like a heavy hammer hitting Li Su's heart. Li Su suddenly felt a pressure, that is, the mother-in-law's identity is not simple, because if it is a normal human existence, it is impossible to survive for hundreds of years. Although there are very few aliens who can live for hundreds of years, there must be a very complicated relationship in it. Li Su observed that this mother-in-law was dressed as an ordinary peasant, but the wrinkles on her face were not fake. The elf looked at her with a big head and told Li Su, "Do you think there is something wrong with this mother-in-law?" Li Su looked back at him. What's the problem? Didn't you just think about it? Why are you still asking me? The elf sighed helplessly. He knew that Li Su's thoughts just now were very terrifying. He felt that her mother-in-law was a monster. But Li Su also regrets his own thoughts at the moment, and he really shouldn't say it like this. Although he also thinks this mother-in-law is a bit strange, Li Su knows that the mother-in-law's identity is a mystery, but it does not mean that it cannot be revealed. The dress of this mother-in-law, CTDC, is that of ordinary villagers, but her eyes are very peaceful and rich, and she can win so many Dragon Balls at first glance. This is not a small role. So many Dragon's Ball can come together and can exist for hundreds of years, which seems to be very historical. But Li Su is also thinking at the moment, this old woman can collect so many things, which means that she is planning for her own ideas, and at this moment Li Su also feels the pressure of her mother-in-law, because her mother-in-law has been for hundreds of years, has been waiting for his son, but has not been waiting. It's just that now Li Su met this mother-in-law, and she just traced back these things, which made her recall. Her mother-in-law felt that there were some things she couldn't remember, but now she remembers the results, and she also finds it difficult, because Li Su knew that this mother-in-law's stuff was hard to find, but it wasn't easy to sell it. He felt that the use of Dragon Ball was somewhat complicated. But Dragon Ball can survive for hundreds of years, also because the mother-in-law has always cherished it. My mother-in-law wanted to ask Li Su, where did you come from, and are you also interested in this Dragon Ball? Li Su was inexplicably helpless. From Li Su's point of view, this mother-in-law was asking them for details, because Li Su already knew her mother-in-law's temper. If Li Su didn't say anything, it would be really impolite. At this moment, Li Su held the Dragon Balls in his hands, each of which was different, but Li Su didn't care much about the stories of these Dragon Balls. He just felt that the use of Dragon Balls must be it took a long time to polish up. But it's a miracle that this Dragon Ball has survived for so long, and it hasn't been worn out until now. It seems that it is well protected in the hands of my mother-in-law. The mother-in-law thought about it for a while, and also felt that the Dragon Ball that Li Su was holding was a necessity for him. Then you care so much about this young man. Does this Dragon Ball have any special meaning to you? The mother-in-law asked Li Su, who was stumped. He got the Dragon Ball because he wanted to become stronger. As for getting the Dragon Ball, what does it mean? I didn't think about it. Although I also know that Dragon Ball can defeat many enemies if it is very powerful in his hand. This is not his ultimate goal, it is to become stronger, but Dragon Ball also takes time to play. If you just blindly use Dragon Ball and don't cherish Dragon Ball, then Dragon Ball will probably dissipate. But human power is small, and all things can only be known after seeing the answer. Although it may be good that Dragon Ball can be brought back, he also feels that these things may not be the best at this moment. Time will always give the answer. What is the meaning of the troubles and Dragon Ball that Li Su is thinking about at the moment? The question I ask, if you think that Dragon Ball is only a powerful force for me, it is too underestimated. I just regard Dragon Ball as an honor, and if you get your hands, you can naturally play his best role. Defeat the enemy is my goal, not to play a house here. That's not a big deal. I haven't given the meaning of Dragon Ball, but it's not good to just move forward blindly. After hearing this, the mother-in-law also felt emotional. She knew that Li Su could come to this planet just to find Dragon Ball, and boy, if you want to find dragon boats, I have a lot of them here. I guess you come to find them. The purpose of this room is also for Dragon Ball. The mother-in-law really guessed well. Li Su nodded and motioned her to continue. The mother-in-law then glanced at the Dragon Ball in the room and put one in Li Su's hand, and said something unexpectedly. This Dragon Ball boat is destined to you. It has been shining since you came. The light is similar to the color of your clothes, so this Dragon Ball is destined to be yours. And this Dragon Ball exudes a dark blue light inside and out, which really suits Li Su's clothes, and they complement each other. Li Su glanced at it, but he had never heard of it. Dragon Ball still has the ability to choose a fate. Maybe this fate is himself, and now my mother-in-law is talking about the mystery of metaphysics, because I don't know when Dragon Ball's power will appear, but at least this moment he understands. Dragon Ball, they all come well prepared and will choose someone who is destined, but what is the meaning of this Dragon Ball? The mother-in-law's answer was a bit surprising. She just said, if you get the Dragon Ball, your power will increase, but if it's just an increase, it can only prove that your current cultivation level is not high enough. But why is this true? Come to these planets to find naturally. It is to improve one's own abilities. But at this moment, Li Su also suddenly felt that the old woman was not very willing. This mother-in-law had her own opinions and ideas, but she was unwilling to give away the Dragon Ball. She even said that the Dragon Ball and Li Su were destined, but Li Su obviously there is no free lunch. So he took an equivalent Dragon Ball from the accompanying package and gave it to the mother-in-law. This can be recognized by the mother-in-law, but it can only be used to prove that you come and go. He gave it to his mother-in-law, who took it and glanced at it, and suddenly smiled. I just need a Dragon Ball that can shine. This one is just right, and it's good for you to give it to me. However, after taking a look at the Dragon Ball, he thought about it carefully before opening his mouth. Li Su, this Dragon Ball is a bit interesting. Not only will it light up, but the lamp oil in the Dragon Ball will also need to be added with new lamp oil. This is a Dragon Ball similar to a lamp, which is somewhat unexpected. Li Su nodded and said, that's right, it's his lamp Dragon Ball, and he can also light lamp oil, but this is also its peculiarity. Isn't it nice to have a Dragon Ball like a lamp dash? Li Su felt that the arrival of the Dragon Ball would naturally illuminate the darkness, and the Dragon Ball light could illuminate the darkness. My mother-in-law wanted this Dragon Ball but not for this purpose, she just wanted to accumulate various Dragon Ball, wait for his son to come back, that's all. Li Su felt a little sad when he heard this, because he felt that this old woman would definitely not be able to wait for his son, but now he still said so directly. It seems that he has a lot of thoughts in his heart. Li Su was also in a good mood at the moment, although she felt that her mother-in-law was a little persistent, but in the end it was some kind of different idea. Can't wait, can't wait. The mother-in-law seemed to be in a good mood, and when she saw Li Su's eyes, her eyes softened a little bit. Young man, let's put the lamp oil first. Let's call this Dragon Ball lamp oil. I have someone here to light lamp oil, and you are very good at giving things. That's right, then I'll give you this Dragon Ball in your hand. You can take it and use it yourself. I can't help you with anything else. Seeking flowers. Li Su knew exactly that this Dragon Ball was very powerful, and the things the old woman gave would be carefully cleaned up. The mother-in-law went into the house and took some food out, and then looked at the food. It was all this planet a special product that looks delicious. He called the elf to come over. Elf, eat some of these fruits too, it looks pretty good. The elf took a peach and took a bite. Well, it tastes good, but I didn't expect that my mother-in-law would buy so many fruits, and I think the old man couldn't finish it, so it's okay to give us some. 0. Li Su thinks too, this old woman must be lonely staying here alone, but we'll just come back and talk. Just thinking that this old woman gave her such a good Dragon Ball, she always has something in return, and they should give him something. Although this so-called Dragon Ball gift is just a polite word, but now I feel that I can really send Dragon Ball, which is not bad. Although this Dragon Ball is very useful to him, and now Li Su has felt that things have changed. He never knew that the role of Dragon Ball could be so powerful, although he now understands that these Dragon Balls will become precipitated because of it. I watched the old woman go to the store for a long time, but there were not many customers. It can only be said that the shop opened by the old lady is not very popular with everyone, because everyone knows the character of the old lady, and it has existed for a long time. Maybe some people just can't accept someone who has lived for so many years, but Li Su doesn't think so. Instead, he smiled at his mother-in-law and said, "Mother-in-law, you must exist better, maybe you will be able to survive in the future. Come to this planet to see you." Next, but my mother-in-law didn't think so. She felt that since she saw Li Su's arrival, she also gave him a Dragon Ball, but this fate ended here, and she should never see each other again. But her mother-in-law felt that sometimes a planet has been staying for a long time and no one has come to visit, but it is also a little lonely. But a young man like Li Su has such great energy, and the Dragon Ball is also very powerful as a power, so the mother-in-law smiled sincerely. "Young man, go on your journey to find the Dragon Ball, there are more on this planet. There are many places to pick up Dragon Ball, but they are all dangerous, but if you are brave enough to try it, there may be new discoveries." 35. After listening to her mother-in-law's words in 017, Li Su's heart felt a little warmer, and he felt a little helpless to wander on these planets. After all, he still had the company of elves and greetings from strangers, which is not bad, but Li Su knowing at this moment that all things will not come to an end. At this moment, all he has to do is to use the power of Dragon Ball, because now he doesn't know what kind of power Dragon Ball will have after it arrives, but now he understands more that the power of Dragon Ball is powerful, and if he can't move forward well, everything has already been done. Lost its original meaning. But at this moment, Li Su is unable to link the power of Dragon Ball with these planets in front of him, because although there are many things in the planet, not all of them have Dragon Ball, and the Dragon Ball found by Li Su at this moment is only in the if you find it in a room, maybe you will find something new if you go forward. He said goodbye to his mother-in-law, then mother-in-law, I will leave first, and I will come to see you later when I have time. The mother-in-law nodded with a smile, a warm smile appeared on her wrinkled face. She approached the inner room. Li Su watched her enter the room, and suddenly felt reluctant to walk outside. Looking at the street with people coming and going, the streets are full of noisy voices, the voices of hawking and shopping, and everyone's jokes are very clear. Li Su watched for a long time and felt that suddenly the world was out of place, and the elf was in looking at him. He was a little puzzled and asked him, "How are you?" Li Su was a little nervous and said, "I am now wandering on these planets but have no fixed place to live. I feel that this kind of life without a fixed place is really pitiful, but in fact I am very happy, so I should say, are you pitiful or ridiculous?" The elf was not happy when he heard it, and refuted Li Su's words. "I'm not by your side, let's go to find Dragon Ball together. I'm also your good friend, why can't you feel this?" They must feel that they are running alone. "Although I am just an elf, I can also talk to you." Li Su thinks it is true. The elves have been by his side along the way, and have grown a lot of things, and have experienced a lot of hardships, which is quite okay, but the more Li Su walked forward, he saw that these hawkers had begun to sell all kinds of food. "Yes, I still used it just now, but now it has become food. The speed of changing things is really fast." But Li Su was a little hungry at the moment, and really wanted to buy something to eat, but there were only a few small Dragon Balls in his pocket that could make interstellar coins, so he went to a restaurant and ordered a few dishes. When these dishes came up, Li Su looking at it was delicious. The elf ate a lot. Although they all knew that these dishes were quite expensive on these planets, since they used Dragon Ball to consume, they were welcome. So after eating, Li Su took a look around this restaurant. There are some people who have a lot of Dragon Balls, they can live well on this planet, but also because they live in a world under an unknown place. If Li Su hadn't entered by accident, he probably wouldn't have found such a place here. There are indeed a lot of people in the restaurant, because there are also many people who come to eat. Li Su took a look at these Dragon Balls. Although these Dragon Balls can be used as money, the people here at least have a lot of Dragon Balls in their homes. However, Li Su also felt a little puzzled at this time, that is, these Dragon Balls are used so frequently. Does everyone on this planet make Dragon Balls? If Dragon Balls can't be made, how can so many Dragon Balls be used? But if Dragon Balls can be used, it also proves that these people regard Dragon Balls as treasures. At this time, a guest saw Li Su's existence, suddenly came over and asked, "Are you the Li Su who took the Dragon Ball?" Li Su didn't know what this person wanted to do, so he asked, "Well, are you okay?" 35. The guest shouted, "So you are such a god who is looking for Dragon Ball. We have been looking for you for a long time. We never knew that anyone could control our Dragon Ball in 3.2, but now it's alright. This dragon, the balls are all collected, and I can give them to you too." Li Su, who was stunned, was a little puzzled. What is the purpose of trying his own way? Do you want me to experiment with myself? The elf added in time, this person presumably wants to use the Dragon Ball and see the effect. They also want to try out how to use the Dragon Ball. Li Su thinks this is just embarrassing him. How simple it is to use Dragon Ball still needs to be taught. Have these people never used it? So looking at the guest, did you not know about Dragon Ball before? Or you are not a practitioner, so you don't know. 39. Li Su also felt that although all the people who ate had Dragon Ball, it was a little strange not to know the appearance of Dragon Ball. The guest suddenly became curious when he saw Li Su. Then you have to talk about what you think the Dragon Ball can do, what kind of power it can do, but I don't know where to start, because if I don't understand the purpose of the Dragon Ball, it's definitely explained. It's a bit of a hassle. But what he wants to say is that even if you don't know what to say, you should know how I teach you how to use Dragon Ball. This person is very excited when he hears it. Maybe Li Su will teach him something, then but great. But this person always looked at Li Su with some doubts. I don't think it's amazing how much you taught me Dragon Ball, but you seem to be very confident. Li Su didn't know where to start, but he just said slowly, if you think this is difficult and you feel inferior, don't you have a problem with your brain? This person also thinks about it, and his brain is fine. Isn't it normal to teach a Dragon Ball and should be proud? So this person also wants to understand, and looks at Li Su with more and more admiration. Then Li Su, you will teach me how this Dragon Ball becomes power. Li Su thought about it and didn't know where to start. He can only start from the most basic. Then it's enough to absorb the power of Dragon Ball. This young man said a lot, he commented, and then he looked at Li Su quietly, then tell me how you use it, and show me how to use it. Li Su felt that he could really release it, so he took out the Dragon Ball he just got in his hand and put it in his hand, and then looked forward to see the Dragon Ball emitting a lot of light. He slowly gathered strength into the palm of his hand, and his whole body started to heat. Li Su thought about it for a while and thought that this Dragon Ball had such a strong power, and it was absorbed as soon as it absorbed a little, so much energy is still very good. But Li Su knew clearly that Dragon Ball couldn't be used like this, so he had to tell the guest. If you want to use the Dragon Ball, he must practice first, and he can use it after the practice is completed, otherwise he will die suddenly. If you don't want to die, then hand over your Dragon Ball obediently. Hearing this, the man wondered, why are you threatening me? But I thought it was more fun, so I explained it. I just wanted to create a danger. Li Su is just curious about this, because he has never threatened anyone, but since he has come to this world, it is always okay to play new tricks. You can clearly feel that these Dragon Balls have great effects, but the guests in front of them don't understand them, so it's not easy to teach them. I just think it's difficult to teach one person, but as long as you pay attention, it will be effective. So Li Su wanted to tell him, if you want to practice and use Dragon Ball, you should practice martial arts first, and then you can gradually reach the state of absorbing Dragon Ball. Even if your current state is still very low, it is not completely impossible. So just try your best to cultivate. The man looked at Li Su excitedly when he heard it. Then how to cultivate? You can teach me. I don't know how to say it right, but now these cultivation methods are not bad. It's just that Li Su felt unprecedented pressure at this moment. He actually wanted to teach people how to absorb the energy of Dragon Ball. Whether it was against the sky or not, it was basically his own decision. It was also his fate who would learn this thing. There are still many things he doesn't understand, and he can't change his fate against the sky, so he can only refuse this person's request. I think you should look at your own chances, because if you can learn something, then you will learn it, and it is impossible for me to change what I teach you in one day, because everyone is destined to learn something. If you can't do it now, it doesn't mean you won't in the future, so you just need to do your best to learn, and I can't teach you too much, right? This person also felt the same after listening to it. He felt that Li Su was really a good teacher, and he just asked 017, since you know that it will be difficult for me to learn this, why don't you want to teach me? But do I think you're doing a tongue twister with us? You agreed just now and said it's okay. Now I'm asking this sentence again. Are your brain circuits more repetitive? Li Su didn't want to give this Dragon Ball's body collection method to the professor. Others, although it seems that these people can be made at present, this is not the premise of absorbing Dragon Ball. Li Su's idea is that if these people can learn how to absorb the energy of Dragon Ball, then the entire continent will undergo earth-shaking changes in the future, but not now. This person turned a few times in front of his eyes, holding the Dragon Ball and looking left and right, but he couldn't absorb his energy, and he could only say that he had no relationship with the energy of these Dragon Balls. But Li Su watched for a long time, and also wanted to ask, you guys care so much about the energy of Dragon Ball, why don't you practice it yourself? The so-called exercises are not something you can do casually, and you have to learn the energy of Dragon Ball, is to take this step first. Li Su didn't want to teach these things, so he didn't say enough, but the fat man in front of him still insisted, since you are a cultivator from far away, Li Su, why can't you teach me something? What this person thinks about is to study Dragon Ball and practice some spells, but he has never seen it with his own eyes, so he doesn't know enough about how the practice of the real Deo Dharma is. But he firmly believes that there is always some way to reach a realm like Li Su, but the premise is to sacrifice the power of Dragon Ball, but this power is so powerful, if it is inhaled, it may cause turmoil in the internal organs, may vomit blood, and may be exhausted and die, but that's another story. This fat man has never tried this kind of spell, so his understanding is not comprehensive enough, but Li Su didn't want to tell him too much, just looked at him lightly and said slowly, if you feel the power of this Dragon Ball, if you can really absorb it, then you can give it a try. If you can't absorb it, you don't need to hold on, and Dragon Ball is here, you can't really absorb his power. This Dragon Ball's power is powerful, if you can't absorb it for a while, then there is no way to absorb it. At this moment, Li Su also understood that the so-called Dragon Ball's power is absorbed by a law, and this law is that practitioners must have Taoism in their hearts. If there is no Taoism, it is difficult to sacrifice. But sacrificing the strength of Dragon Ball is certainly good, whether it can be done depends on each person's practice. Fatty blinked his eyes and seemed to want to ask again, but Li Su didn't answer his question. Maybe he just thought that this teacher would have a good start if he sacrificed, but this moment is not the essence of Dragon Ball. Absorption continues, of course, there will be inadvisable. But Li Su will understand, it's just that the so-called Dragon Ball absorbs energy only here, and it is impossible to absorb this kind of power in other places. There should be more people on this planet who can absorb Dragon Ball, but they are angry about these things. Maybe this is why Li Su is not good enough to feel angry. Li Su didn't want to radiate the power of Dragon Ball casually. He just knew better that if he wants to move forward, he must not look back, because the past can't be reversed, and only this moment Li Su can feel it. The change of the problem is going on silently, and Li Su should just think that maybe provoking the fat man will indeed bring about a good change. But this is all uncertain. Some things can't be done, but it doesn't matter. If Li Su knows that there are new developments in these things, it will be of little significance, and Li Su just feels that it is still difficult to help these people to practice these methods. But Li Su didn't want to feel discouraged because of this. Some problems must be solved, and some problems cannot be solved. Although Li Su can't know at this moment whether he will have any disciples if he doesn't teach him. This is all for later, but Li Su is also thinking at this moment whether he really thinks that this so-called Dao Fa can be taught casually, then it is not in front of him, but in the future. Although he still wants to hear the next exercises, Li Su is reluctant to talk about it. Li Su thinks this is a huge problem, but at this moment Li Su feels unprecedented pressure. He felt a little troublesome when something suddenly had to be taught, but he didn't want to mention it too much. Although you know that there are certain risks in teaching these jobs, if this person wants to learn, Li Su can barely teach, but what he wants to say is, if you really want to learn, you will pay some tuition, I won't. What to teach people for free, because I don't think it's worth it, and you don't have to worry about these problems now, you just need to move on at this moment. 39. And I also know that these exercises will develop into another form in the future, but all of these are within the exercises. The elf listened to the cola next to him, but he didn't realize that Li Su was so willing to teach the exercises, but when he didn't know it, it would definitely take time to learn from scratch, but Li Su didn't want to mention too much. I just want to make it clear to the person who wants to learn. It's impossible if you want to be quick, but if you can complete a certain goal within a certain period of time, it's still possible. I know now that you can't learn, but you have to give full play to your ability. Get Zhao, Li Su is not willing to teach this exercise, but this person must learn it. He has no choice. He can only say to this person, you show your strength first. After all, you are also someone who owns Dragon Ball, so it's not like you don't know any exercises. The man was stunned for a moment and didn't react, then asked Li Su, what do you need to show? Or what do you want to see? What this person cares about is whether he can use Dragon Ball after learning these things, because if he can't use it, there is no way to continue learning. All the things that should be learned will be learned in a short period of time. If you want to learn in this way, it is not impossible. It depends on whether you can persevere. Li Su doesn't want to feel embarrassed or anything. He just thinks it's too difficult to teach this person to practice absorbing Dragon Ball's power, and Li Su is going to find the next NPC at the moment. To a figure. But the person had already swayed to the ground and turned into a person who looked like an NPC. Li Su saw that this was not what he was looking for, so he kept running over to get to the NPC. The NPC saw Li Su stepping back and seemed to not understand what Li Su was going to do. Li Su put on a shy smile and smiled at the NPC. Hello, I'm here to find Dragon Ball. Can you tell me where am I next where you live? The NPC was stunned for a while and didn't seem to understand. Li Su repeated it again, is there a town with a new Dragon Ball nearby? Because Li Su knew that in most towns here, if you can find the Dragon Ball in town 017, collect it. You can. But the NPC didn't really want to agree. The NPC felt that this was bothering him, but it was because he was an NPC, but the NPC seemed to have some thoughts before replying to Li Su's words. The NPC just said lightly, you can see a village if you keep walking, there should be someone there, ask him. Li Su was very happy when he heard it. This NPC still didn't speak, and as soon as he spoke, he told all the key points, but it was not bad. In this way, there is no need for Li Su to just ask anything, because if he collects it directly, he will have more and more Dragon Balls in his hands, but that's okay. Although the whereabouts of Dragon Ball are not clear enough, there is a specific direction to look for at this time. This is very lucky for Li Su. Although the NPC's words are not sure whether it is credible, he is an NPC in this world. Can be believed. The elf followed the two of them to the outside of the town, and came to a place where there was no one. There were only a few wooden houses here. The wooden houses seemed to be filled with something, and they glowed from a distance. Li Su took a closer look. Isn't this the Dragon Ball he was looking for? These rooms are actually full of Dragon Balls. With so many Dragon Balls placed, the owner of this room must be rich or expensive, right? If this is the case, Li Su can be sure to call them here. The NPCs here must not be joking. But to be honest, there is indeed the existence of Dragon Ball here, but why Dragon Ball came because of this, Li Su also does not know. He only knew these names and only showed them here, but Li Su felt that the destination was awake now, seeing the Dragon Ball glowing inside. List it at a point in time and wait for him to come forward to check it. If you can't check it, it proves that it is easy to lose the effect of use. At this time, the best effect needs to be identified with time. If you can't identify it, there is no way judged. CDDC, Li Su continued to walk and stopped at the door of the wooden house because he wanted to know if there was anyone inside. Knocked on the door and found that there was no response from the wooden house. Li Su opened the door and saw the Dragon Ball full of them, very gorgeous. What kind of treasure land is this? There are so many Dragon Balls that no one comes to fetch. If people from the outside world know about it, they may be sold out in a while, and there are so many Dragon Balls, do you want them? I can cultivate to a very high realm. Li Su was also very happy, so he observed these Dragon Balls and wanted to know to what extent these things can be used now, and if they can be used, it means that it has a certain effect. Although the use of Dragon Ball is difficult, Li Su did not intend to give up, and the elf said next to him, if you take away so many Dragon Balls, people in other worlds will probably be envious. But Li Su didn't care about this. This is what I found and he envy, but it's none of my business. I won't share it with them if I find it. The elf also thought about it. This is what Li Su has worked so hard to get. Of course it will not work to give it to others. I don't know why the use of Dragon Ball made Li Su understand that this Dragon Ball will be taken away by him. If he doesn't take it away, it will only be robbed. But Li Su never knew about such a big village. It's all these things in the house. No one came to check, and the elf also asked. The NPC said that the Dragon Ball was hidden, right? It's a fake. There is such a big room, but no one has come to see it. What's the situation? Li Su wasn't clear enough either. He didn't know whether what the NPC was saying was true or not. Just see if he could absorb the power. So he took a Dragon Ball, ready to explore the power inside, but found that the Dragon Ball quickly melted into his body, and that energy instantly made him rise several stages. This Dragon Ball is not an ordinary size. After inhaling the power, I immediately feel full of energy. It can only mean that this Dragon Ball is very powerful. You can test the Dragon Ball in the whole room to see what kind of power it is. The elf was a little unconvinced, and did not expect Li Su to be so obsessed with this, so he asked a question. If you really want to get these Dragon Balls, try your best to get them, instead of picking them up from some places for nothing. You should do less of this kind of cheap things. Li Su was inexplicably slapped by him, and looked at the elf very unhappy, but Li Su's opinion is that he can use the pearls after he gets them. At this moment, the elf suddenly felt a little emotional. Li Su, if you saw that Dragon Ball appeared here from the beginning, would you go back to this place where you traced back to the origin? 39. Li Su seemed to seriously think about it, looked at the elf, and actually thought that this Dragon Ball would be used by me, so you should think about the answer behind this. Elf's words just echoed in his ears, but Li Su wanted to ask him, since you think that I use Dragon Ball to absorb energy here, then you are wrong. Because Li Su's idea is to become very powerful, no joke, not to absorb the Dragon Ball found here, and only after absorbing the power can he return to the most powerful state. But Li Su didn't want to teach these methods to others, because it was just a secret. Li Su never thought that his Dragon Ball would get a reward when he distributed it. At this moment, a person came from the village and looked at Li Su. Do you know what this so-called time relationship is? As you know, the power of these Dragon Balls will gather here, but have you seen Dragon Ball's final form? Maybe Li Su was looking for Dragon Balls from the beginning, but they all came to the village, and naturally he was able to find most of the Dragon Balls, so there is still hope. The village chief of the village looked at Li Su at a loss. So you came to our village just for the Dragon Ball. Then there are quite a lot of Dragon Balls in our village, but now if you do find the Dragon Ball, are you going to leave too? The Dragon Ball can only be used after a certain period of time. Li Su gently opened the hilt of the sword in his hand and a sword chi burst out. Rush out. At this moment, Li Su saw a swaying figure in front of him and greeted him. Are you an NPC? There is a strange hat on the NPC's head. The hat is the pattern of Dragon Ball. Li Su was a little curious. Going forward, looking left and right, stared at this NPC and turned around. The NPC looked at Li Su unhappy. Why are you circling around me? Haven't you seen the NPC? Is this NPC still a little temperamental? Li Su smiled, but he didn't expect to be an NPC with small emotions. The NPC smiled coldly. If you hadn't asked me for something, would you be so polite to me? Li Su thinks that too. If he didn't want to find out the whole, it really has nothing to do with him. The NPC's idea was that Li Su was going to take the Dragon Ball, so he asked, but Li Su can have it now, so if he can get it, there is no shortage of these. Li Su also thought so. The NPC thinks that Li Su will be very short of Dragon Balls. On the contrary, Li Su has a lot of Dragon Balls in his hands. The average person can't get so many Dragon Balls from him, but this NPC also serves the people. Since Li Su came to this planet, we must also answer some of his doubts, and we can't ask people to drive them away. So Li Su could only quietly look at the NPC and say something. Mr. NPC, you think too much. Of course it will be useful for me to take Dragon Ball, but there are a lot of them on this planet. Wouldn't it be okay for me to take some casually? Seeking flowers. The NPC pondered some questions, although he felt that these Dragon Balls were of little significance to him, but at this moment, Li Su received a cold front, all of which came from behind the NPC. Li Su looked back and saw that there was a bellows behind the NPC, and the wind was blowing. It seemed that he was quite afraid of the heat. Li Su glanced at him lightly, and felt that this NPC was afraid of hot weather, so he said, do you really think it's hot here? 00. NPC looked at him puzzled. I'm dying of heat. You still say it's not hot. Do you see how thick the equipment I'm wearing? Li Su took a closer look. The NPC was wearing several layers of clothes, and it was strange that the fourth or fifth layers were not hot. It seems that you are quite dedicated, wearing so much to play an NPC here. The NPC, however, looked at him rudely. If you have a fart, let it go. Tell me if you have something. Don't be fooling me here. Li Su glanced at him and said, is there any other mysterious person in this village now? I'm looking for a mysterious person who seems to be able to tell me where the way out of this planet is 5. The NPC looked at him like a fool, and felt that this mysterious person was everywhere, but he couldn't see it. Li Su was not convinced. If you can find the mysterious man, you can call me out. It's no use talking nonsense to me here, right? The mysterious man Li Su is looking for is the strongest person in this continent, and all his exercises are extremely high. Li Su didn't want to tell the NPC the specific information of the mysterious man, because the NPC did not know the existence of the mysterious man, so it was of no use. But Li Su is thinking at the moment, if the NPC can discover the existence of the mysterious man in time, then it may be easier to find the Dragon Ball later. This Dragon Ball is always hidden in some places, but it is fine if it can be found. It's just that Li Su doesn't quite understand at the moment why these Dragon Ball changes come from, because all Dragon Balls are under the control of NPC, and this control will also be found here. And the address of the mysterious person mentioned by Dragon Ball will also be the gathering of all Dragon Balls in 020 at this time, because the gathering of Dragon Ball will take time. The NPC saw that he thought about it for a long time, but couldn't come up with a reason, so he asked Li Su, do you think that the mysterious man will bring you something? Or do you have any special help for the mysterious man? Li Su was a little puzzled. I don't think the mysterious person will bring my Dragon Ball out here, but will tell me how to use these Dragon Balls one by one on the way. This is what I want to do in the end. Li Su didn't want to make the Dragon Ball thing too straightforward, because he knew that the NPC might not understand it. The elf watched for a long time and didn't understand what they were talking about, but asked Li Su, it makes you feel that those Dragon Balls belong to you. Why don't you stop here, get the Dragon Balls, and don't go there yet? Go out anyway. You can't find the next Dragon Ball when you go out now, can you? 35. What Li Su said is a bit confusing, because he thinks that the use of Dragon Ball is still difficult, but if it can be used comprehensively, maybe the burst of power will be stronger. Although Li Su thinks that these powers depend on time, Li Su does not want to use Dragon Ball very simply, because he also wants to use Dragon Ball regularly and systematically, which may help him more. After hearing this, the elf was also a little puzzled and asked Li Su, if you think that these Dragon Balls will be so easy to use, then you should try to go to Fusion, they may have new harvests. 39. Li Su was a little puzzled. Are you thinking that I can't use Dragon Ball or something? Elf has always felt that the use of Dragon Ball still requires a lot of skills, and Li Su is only a little bit knowledgeable now, and can't fully use Dragon Ball. But Li Su was not in a hurry, just asked about the existence of this mysterious person. You should know a lot. It's okay to tell me. I want to see how holy he is. If I can find the Dragon Ball, it means a lot to me, because I know that the Dragon Ball is always there, and the circle of light it gathers is very large. and the NPC has a big circle above your head, and this circle appears around you, so all you have to do now is to tell me who the other Dragon Balls are kept, and I'm going to find them. 35. The NPC laughed when he heard it. You are so confident, can you find this Dragon Ball? I can't believe it, you are so obsessed with Dragon Ball, or do you think that you are no longer concerned about the use of Dragon Ball? But it's actually difficult, you can't use Dragon Ball very well, and you can't be sure when Dragon Ball will be used by you, it's just your guess. After listening to Li Su, he was a little puzzled. He didn't think it was very difficult to use Dragon Ball, but he still wondered if the NPC didn't want to tell him, is it because of other reasons? But no matter how much Li Su said, he was not sure how the Dragon Ball would be used, and at this moment he suddenly felt the movement of the NPC in front of him. Should he go to the next meeting point? Li Su thought about it for a while and quickly followed, because Li Su was really afraid that he would be lost. This NPC was very fast, so Li Su rushed forward with the elf, trying to find the NPC carefully. But I didn't expect that Li Su didn't see any sign of the NPC after watching it for a long time. It seemed that he left very quickly. Li Su felt a little discouraged at this time and told the elf, do you think that you haven't watched it all the way? When I got to that NPC, its speed was too fast, I couldn't even keep up. The elf wanted to laugh when he heard it, then didn't you see him in the sky above you? Li Su looked up and saw that the NPC was above him. It was easy to spot, but Li Su really felt that the NPC was walking very fast. Although the speed of the NPC made him unmatched, in fact the NPC was still waiting, and he was looking at Li Su from 3.2 in the sky. Li Su smiled at him, and then said, so you are in the sky above me, but I didn't realize that you were walking so fast, that's how it is. The NPC seemed to be a little emotional. He didn't think there was any difference in this sudden disappearance. He just thought that Li Su's response was a little slow, and he was floating in the sky, but he didn't even notice it. Don't really care about that. Can you come down and talk, that NPC? I can't even hear you. I didn't expect the other party to be Son Goku. Li Su and he soon became friends. Li Su and Son Goku left the previous planet and headed to Namek to find the 5th Dragon Ball. Brother Monkey, where do you think the 7th Dragon Ball is? Why didn't I find it? Li Su asked while flying. I don't even know where that thing is, I just sensed that it was in Namek, and I really don't know where the others are. Son Goku said, if my perception is correct, this visit to Namek will definitely be rewarding, but I haven't noticed it yet. Brother Monkey, go to Namek first, and I'll let you know as soon as I have news. Li Su said with a smile, by the way, Brother Monkey, I still have a few things I want to discuss with you. Say it. Son Goku said. The first thing is your identity. Li Su said. Brother Monkey, your identity is too mysterious. If you continue to stay in this universe, I am afraid that some people will follow you. After all 23 your strength is too strong. Well, your worries are correct. Son Goku nodded, but I haven't found a way to go back yet. If I can find a way to go back, I can go back to the time you lived in. What are you going to do, Brother Monkey? Li Su said. I don't know either, but I'll fix this as soon as possible. Son Goku said. In addition, it has already reached this world. I will put them in this world. Vegeta and Piccolo have also arrived. Brother Monkey, are you lying to me? Li Su asked in surprise. No, how dare I lie to the Vegeta brothers? I really found them. Son Goku explained that if you don't believe me, you can check the Vegeta brothers' information. Li Su nodded. Okay, I'll see if you're lying to me. Hey. Son Goku smiled honestly. How could I lie to you? You are my favorite brother? Monkey, don't make fun of me. Li Su said. Haha. Son Goku laughed. Well, then I'm not kidding. Correct. Brother Monkey, let me ask you something. Do you know where Vegeta and Piccolo are now? Li Su said. I know. Son Goku said that they live in Namek now, and it was arranged by Big Brother Vegeta. Brother Vegeta's strength is stronger than mine, and he doesn't need me to shoot at all. So my job is to keep Vegeta and Piccolo safe. It is good. That way I'm relieved. Li Su said. Yes. Son Goku, how long until we get to Namek? This will take a while. Son Goku said that our speed is already very fast, but it still takes about half a year to reach Namek. It's still half a year? Li Su frowned when he heard Son Goku's words. This half year is a bit long. If they can't reach Namek after half a year, doesn't it mean that they can't return to their original world? In this way, their world will also disappear? Thinking of this level, Li Su couldn't help but get nervous. He didn't want his world to disappear because there were too many people here. Yes, otherwise, do you think our speed will be so fast? Son Goku said, do you think it's a rocket? And your current cultivation level is improving too fast, I don't know how many times you can hold on, I'm afraid your body can't take it for a long time. Okay, I get it. Li Su nodded, and since that's the case, Brother Monkey, let's hurry up. Kindness. Son Goku nodded, he also wanted to go back to his own world earlier. Brother Monkey, let's go now, Li Su said. Okay, Son Goku agreed. So Li Su and Son Goku started flying. Son Goku's speed was extremely fast, while Li Su's speed was much worse. But he already has a spaceship now, so he's not afraid that Son Goku will be faster than him. The two flew slowly and leisurely on 020, and encountered many Zerg during the period, but Son Goku's fighting power was very strong, so these insects were repelled by Son Goku without hurting them in the slightest. Still, Li Su ran into some trouble. he met a kind of zerg called the Dark Insect Mother. The number of this zerg is very large, there are tens of millions, and this is their leader. If it was the leader, Li Su would be in danger. Although the number of these insects is very small, each female insect is more than 100 meters tall, looks extremely ugly, and is very cunning, and their teeth are extremely sharp. If they are bitten, it will be very painful. This worm mother is very terrifying, not only can fly but also spray venom. Looking at these bugs, Li Su couldn't help frowning. If they didn't have a shield, the bugs would probably tear him apart in an instant, but thankfully Son Goku has a shield. Otherwise, his defense would not be able to stop the attack of these insects. Monkey brother, this bug may be specially prepared to kill us low-level creatures. Li Su said, it is better for us to be careful. Haha, Son Goku laughed, didn't Big Brother Vegeta already said that these bugs are all prepared to kill us? Then be careful. Li Su said, if you can't resist these bugs, let me go back to our world as soon as possible, let's not fight them again, these bugs are too powerful, we can't deal with them at all. Haha, Son Goku laughed, my brother never gives up, we can give it a try and see who can resist these bugs. After Son Goku finished speaking, he charged towards a bug. The bug saw Son Goku rushing over, and immediately attacked Son Goku. It opened its mouth and spit out a green venom, and attacked Son Goku directly. Son Goku watched the green venom attack him, and he stretched out his fist unhurriedly to meet the green venom. Bump! Son Goku's fist collided with the venom, and there was a loud bang. The toxin instantly spread throughout the entire swarm. Those worms screamed suddenly, their bodies became extremely stiff, and then began to rot rapidly. However, the bug was so powerful that it did not die, but instead bit Son Goku with its teeth, trying to bite off Son Goku's neck. Seeing this, Son Goku couldn't help showing a sneer. Hehe, you idiots still want to bite me, you're just asking for trouble. Son Goku waved his hand, and a strong wind blew through. The bug was suddenly blown around by the wind, and Son Goku took the opportunity to rush into the swarm and launched a slaughter. Li Su watched Son Goku kill insects quietly, and he was very emotional. Son Goku's current strength is definitely not high, and his skills are very agile and fast. These bugs are slow, and they can't catch up with Son Goku's speed at all, so soon Son Goku will those bugs were wiped out. Son Goku turned to look at Li Su, smiled and said, how is it? My strength is not bad, right? Not bad? Li Su gave a thumbs up and said, brother monkey, your strength is really powerful. Haha. Son Goku smiled happily, whether I am strong or not, you will know when you arrive at Super Saiyan. Li Su didn't speak, but silently remembered what Son Goku said just now in his heart. When he arrives at Super Saiyan, he will know what Son Goku means. But at that time, Son Goku it's not Son Goku anymore, it's a Super Saiyan that is incomparably powerful. Brother monkey, let's go and find Brother Vegeta. Li Su said, it is the right thing for us to get out of here as soon as possible. Okay, Son Goku said. The two flew forward another distance, and Li Su suddenly stopped because he felt the vibrations coming from the soles of their feet. Brother monkey, what happened? Li Su asked quickly. I think we are surrounded. Son Goku said with a serious face, it seems that these guys have started to pay attention to us. Noticed us so soon? Li Su wondered. Yeah, I've never seen a bug set its sights on us so quickly. Son Goku said. Brother monkey, what should we do? Shall we run away? Li Su asked worriedly. Although Li Su's strength is good, his actual combat experience is still too little. If he is not careful, his life will be lost. These bugs are not as easy to deal with as ordinary bugs. Son Goku pondered for a moment and then said, don't run away, let's just rush over and see how powerful these bugs are. Li Su agreed with Son Goku, so they had to rush over. Just when Li Su and the others were about to get close to the insect tide, a poisonous snake suddenly rushed towards Li Su. Seeing this, Li Su hurriedly avoided. Seeing that the poisonous snakes didn't bite Li Su, they continued to charge. Son Goku saw these venomous snakes attacking them, and immediately used his unique power. Son Goku's arms shot golden light bullets one by one, and these light bullets slammed directly on the poisonous snake, and the poisonous snake suddenly died and could no longer die. Seeing this, Li Su said in admiration, Brother Monkey, your strength is really strong, I didn't expect that you could actually kill these bugs. Son Goku couldn't help laughing when he heard Li Su's words, haha, in fact, I have long guessed that there must be some powerful bugs in it, so I asked you to learn this skill with me, now it seems that this skill is really very effective. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to kill these bugs so easily. Li Su laughed after hearing Son Goku's words and said, Brother Monkey, your strength is too strong. Son Goku patted Li Su on the shoulder and said, okay, stop flattering, let's move on. After the two finished speaking, they continued to fly forward. Along the way, Son Goku discovered that the bugs were still burrowing out of the ground. Son Goku's heart was suddenly startled. He knew that these worms were created by these monsters, no wonder these worms could be so strong. It turned out that these monsters were controlling these monsters. Son Goku glanced at Li Su next to him and sighed inwardly that this little brother was lucky enough to meet such a monster. These monsters rarely appear, and if you encounter them, it will definitely take a long time, so if you can catch them at this time, try your best to catch them. Thinking of this, Son Goku sped up. When the two of them flew forward for about an hour, Son Goku suddenly stopped, and he saw that there were many bugs in front of him. There were hundreds of them, all of them were densely blocked by Li Su. In front of These bugs seemed to have already anticipated Son Goku's arrival, so they didn't shoot Son Goku immediately, but kept wandering around. These bugs seemed to be planning to use up Li Su's physical strength, and then devoured them in one fell swoop. These things are so hard to deal with, Li Su said. If we can't get rid of them as soon as possible, it's hard for us to get out of here alive. Son Goku nodded and said, well, CDDC, found this too. At this moment, Li Su and Son Goku found that the bugs suddenly moved and charged towards Li Su and Son Goku. Seeing this, Son Goku immediately used his unique trick, the Vajra Subduing Demon Palm, and saw that the Vajra Subduing Demon Palm instantly formed a huge handprint, and the handprint exuded a powerful pressure. All these bugs lay on the ground and struggled constantly. This Son Goku is really amazing, and he has such a powerful power, Li Su said in surprise. Hey, of course. Son Goku smiled proudly, my power is more than just a little bit on the surface. Oh, Li Su responded. He didn't expect Son Goku's power to be so powerful. Son Goku saw that the worms did not continue to resist, so he put the worms in the gourd. As soon as the bugs in the gourd entered the gourd, they quieted down and did not continue to resist. It seems that the strength of these insects is still relatively weak. If it is replaced by those powerful monsters, I am afraid that we will not be so easy to deal with, Son Goku said with a smile. Li Su also smiled when he saw that Son Goku had collected these bugs and said, yeah, it's fortunate that you are very good, brother monkey, otherwise we would have suffered more. Son Goku smiled when he saw this, and then said, well, since there is no danger, let's continue to walk forward. Li Su agreed, and the two continued to run forward. Son Goku and Li Su were running, and they kept releasing all kinds of attacks around them to repel the bugs. The two of them were not idle along the way. Repel these bugs. Son Goku's power is so powerful that he can easily repel these bugs every time. Li Su wasn't bad either, punching the bugs' heads with one punch after another. Son Goku was overjoyed when he saw that there were fewer and fewer bugs, so he continued to run forward. Just after Son Goku and Li Su flew for more than an hour, Son Goku suddenly found that the road ahead had become wider, and there were some houses and buildings on the road ahead, and there were many people in these buildings. Patrol outside. And Li Su and the others could also see that these people were holding weapons. Seeing this, Son Goku scolded inwardly, these bastards have built a fortification in front of them, it seems they want to trap us, damn it. Brother monkey, these things seem to be more powerful than the last time, have you noticed the strong coercion emanating from them? Li Su said nervously, these things are too powerful. Is that so? Son Goku frowned. Li Su nodded heavily and said, in this case, let's retreat temporarily, and come back after our strength has returned to its peak state. Son Goku said, it is good. Li Su nodded and said, then let's retreat first, and don't let these bugs catch up. After Li Su and Son Goku finished talking, they turned around and ran back. They were going to leave here before the bugs reflected. Just when Son Goku and Li Su were about to leave, there was a sudden scream from all directions, and Li Su and Son Goku's expressions changed. They immediately turned around and looked around, only to see many men in black appearing not far away. These men in black were all wearing the same clothes, each holding an iron rod in their hands, and the iron rod exuded a cold breath. These people surrounded Li Su and Son Goku, the iron bars in their hands pointed at Li Su and Son Goku, ready to attack them at any time. Seeing this, Son Goku immediately said, Xiaoxa, these guys must have set a trap here, waiting for us to jump. We must leave quickly, if we are one step later, I am afraid we will not be able to escape. Li Su nodded when he heard the words, and said, well, brother monkey is right, we should leave here quickly. After Li Su and Son Goku finished speaking, they walked back. While walking, Son Goku observed the surrounding situation with his spiritual sense. He felt the surrounding situation and found that there were indeed many masters wandering around. Each of them holds an iron rod in their hands, and each iron rod emits a special light that can resist Son Goku's soul force detection. These masters are almost the level of ordinary Saiyan. Son Goku secretly rejoiced in his heart and said, fortunately, Xiaoxa was there, otherwise we would be in trouble today. Xiaoxa, what do you think we should do now? Son Goku asked. Li Su thought for a while after hearing the words, and said, brother monkey, do you have any good way to deal with these black-clothed people? Son Goku thought about it and said, actually, I have a way to solve them. Oh, what can I do? Li Su hurriedly asked. Hey, Son Goku said with a smirk, that we should just kill it. Killing them? Li Su asked incomprehensibly after hearing this. There are so many people in black. If we want to kill them, I am afraid it will be very difficult and dangerous. We just need to move forward slowly. Just go, I don't think they will wait for us stupidly, so we can leave here calmly now. Son Goku said after listening, Xiaoxa, you are so smart, how could you not think of this? Li Su said with a smile, there are so many people in black, we definitely have no chance to get close to these people in black, but as long as we can get close to these people in black, I think they will definitely spread the soldiers here. Local. Son Goku said after listening, you are right, it seems that this method can be tried. Li Su nodded when he heard the words. Brother monkey, since this is the case, let's act now. If we hesitate, maybe these people will surround us, and we won't be able to leave if we want to leave. Li Su suggested. Son Goku nodded and said, okay, let's do it now. After Son Goku and Lee Su finished talking, they immediately rushed towards the men in black. Son Goku took the lead, the golden cudgel in his hand was dancing like a tiger, and the golden cudgel swept towards the men in black with the whistling sound of the wind. In the past, several men in black were immediately knocked to the ground. Son Goku's attack was very fast and fierce. Son Goku swung his stick and immediately knocked down the two men in black. Flowers. Seeing this, Lee Su was also unequivocal. The iron rod in his hand was also waving like a tiger, knocking all the remaining men in black to the ground. At this time, Son Goku and Lee Su didn't want to keep their hands either. They both shouted in unison, Kamehameha wave. They directly killed those men in black. In the blink of an eye, Son Goku and Lee Su eliminated these men in black, and they didn't waste a single bit of time. Suddenly, just after the men in black were dealt with by Son Goku and Lee Su, a terrifying aura struck. 0. It was Majin Buu who appeared in front of them. Majin Buu was holding a long gun in his hand. The gun body of this long gun was red, and there was a huge skull at the top of the long gun, which looked extremely hideous and terrifying. When Lee Su saw the spear, a strong feeling of fear appeared in his heart. The spear was so weird that even Son Goku dared not despise him. After Son Goku saw Majin Buu appeared, he was secretly vigilant, and secretly figured out what to do to deal with Majin Buu. Lee Su and Son Goku knew very well. If the two of them join forces, they will definitely be able to take out Majin Buu. However, they all have their own pride, and they will never yield to the enemy, even in the face of great danger. Neither Son Goku nor Lee Su will bow to the enemy. They are both arrogant people and will never yield to the enemy, so these Majin Buu become their obstacles, their hindrance. Humph. Son Goku saw Majin Buu. The corners of his mouth were slightly upturned, revealing a sarcastic look. He snorted coldly, and then swung the golden cudgel in his hand violently. Lee Su followed in Son Goku's footsteps and pounced on Majin Buu. The golden cudgel in Son Goku's hand slashed towards Majin Buu's head. Son Goku's attack this time was extremely sharp. Majin Buu was shocked when he saw this, and he quickly blocked the attack of the golden cudgel with his spear. Bump. Of a sound. Majin Buu was smashed by the golden hoop. Majin Buu's body fell heavily to the ground, and blood spit out from his mouth. Majin Buu didn't expect Son Goku's strength to be stronger than him. Although the move just now didn't use all the power of 023, it still injured him. Majin Buu stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, then charged towards Son Goku, stabbing Son Goku again with the spear in his hand. Boom. Another dull crash sounded. Majin Buu was knocked away by Son Goku again. Majin Buu spat blood in the air, and cursed inwardly, this stinky monkey is too cunning. Son Goku and Lee Su watched Majin Buu rush towards them again. Son Goku and Lee Su looked at each other, then raised their hands at the same time. Kaioken. Of power. Majin Buu couldn't dodge and was hit in the chest by Kaioken. A look of pain suddenly appeared on Majin Buu's face. Seeing this, Lee Su hurriedly chased after the victory, and the iron rod in his hand waved again. This time, Lee Su did not use a weapon, but directly punched Majin Buu with his fist. Lee Su's punch seemed simple, but it contained infinite endless power. Seeing this, Majin Buu quickly raised his spear to block. The iron rod in Lee Su's hand intersected with the spear, and the two were instantly shaken back several meters away. After Lee Su stood firm, he charged towards Majin Buu again with an iron rod in hand. Boom. With a loud bang, the two fought together again, Lee Su observing the surrounding terrain while fighting Majin Buu. Lee Su thought to himself, these men in black are not weak, and their equipment and weapons are also very good. We have to spend some effort to kill them, and we have to be careful, because what we are facing now, the enemy is a ninth-order monster. Lee Su was thinking about how to kill those men in black when suddenly, Majin Buu's spear swung again. Majin Buu saw the opportunity and launched an attack on Lee Su. Majin Buu's spear cut through the air and made a sharp friction sound, which made Lee Su's heart tighten. Lee Su didn't expect Majin Buu's reaction to be so quick. He wanted to dodge Majin Buu's attack, but now Lee Su didn't have time to dodge, so he had to bite the bullet and meet him. Lee Su raised the iron rod in his hand to meet him. The iron rod in Lee Su's hand instantly became larger, and it neutralized Majin Buu's attack at once. Seeing this, Majin Buu quickly pulled back. Majin Buu's speed is very fast. He ran hundreds of meters away in the blink of an eye, and he hasn't stopped. Seeing this, Son Goku cursed inwardly, damn. Son Goku hurriedly accelerated to chase after Majin Buu. Lee Su quickly chased after seeing this. The two chased after Majin Buu all the way, and the two shuttled through the valley. Although this valley is not big, it is not too small, and the terrain is complicated. If Lee Su and the others wanted to capture Majin Buu, they had to go around in this valley and make a big circle to catch Majin Buu. If they are not familiar with the terrain of this valley, it is impossible to capture Majin Buu in a short time, and it will take a lot of time. Son Goku and Lee Su chase after Majin Buu all the way. Soon Son Goku felt that Majin Buu's breath was getting weaker and weaker. Son Goku knew that this was the reason why Majin Buu's power was slowly draining. Son Goku knew that if they kept on chasing, Majin Buu would be killed by them sooner or later to consume to death. If it goes on like this, they will be completely exposed. Majin Buu will definitely find it here, and if they want to leave again, it will be very troublesome. Majin Buu is at the end of the game now and will be killed by them soon, and they will never allow Majin Buu to escape again. After thinking about this, Son Goku secretly made a decision in 3.2. Since Majin Buu has been forced to a corner by them, then they can't let Majin Buu run away, otherwise they will have no way to be at peace forever. Thinking of this, Son Goku said to Li Su, let's do it now, we can't let Majin Buu escape. Li Su nodded when he heard this, and said, okay, let's do it now. The decision in Li Su and Son Goku's heart was very clear, and they both thought, now that Majin Buu has been hit so hard, he certainly won't be able to run very far. We must kill him in the shortest possible time. Son Goku thought to himself. The iron rod in his hand swung towards Majin Buu again, and Li Su's iron rod swung towards Majin Buu again. This time Son Goku's iron bar was swung faster and harder, and this time Li Su really did his best. Majin Buu didn't have any defense ability, and the spear in his hand was also very fragile. After just holding on for a few seconds, the spear broke, and Son Goku's iron rod hit Majin Buu's chest hard. Majin Buu's chest sank immediately. Majin Buu screamed. His whole body fell backwards. A stream of bright red blood spurted out of his mouth. The blood fell on the slate, and instantly turned into pieces black shards. Majin Buu was killed immediately after being hit by Son Goku's iron rod. The moment Majin Buu was hit by Son Goku, his life was over and he would never live again. Both Li Su and Son Goku were very happy to see Majin Buu killed by Son Goku. Majin Buu has already been killed by them, and the remaining Majin Buu is definitely not a match for Son Goku. They now have every opportunity to take out all the other Majin Buu, and also be able to kill them all. Majin Buu's body fell to the ground, and there was a trace of blood on Majin Buu's body. The clothes on Majin Buu's body were also stained red with blood. Li Su and Son Goku walked quickly towards Majin Buu's body, and suddenly Majin Buu stood up again. I didn't expect it. This is one of my talents, infinite regeneration. A trace of bright red blood flowed from the corner of Majin Buu's mouth, and he smiled at Son Goku. Son Goku, do you think you can defeat me? I tell you, you are destined to be buried here today. Son Goku snorted and said, Majin Buu, didn't I say that I would bring your body to Son Gohan? I will make your soul into Son Gohan's puppet today, so that you can witness Son Gohan being killed by you. How arrogant you are? Son Goku raised the iron bar in his hand again after speaking, ready to swing at Majin Buu. Not to be outdone, Majin Buu saw Son Goku's attack, his hands changing rapidly. Majin Buu's hands suddenly turned into what looked like two giant hammers. Majin Buu smashed the two giant hammers into Son Goku, and Son Goku raised the iron bar in his hand and hit the hammer. Passed. After the two giant hammers met in midair, a violent collision occurred, and the two hammers stalemate in midair. Son Goku swung the iron rod in his hand vigorously, and Majin Buu swung the iron rod vigorously. The two hammers were stalemate in midair, and neither could defeat the other. This match has been going on for several minutes, and neither of the two can do anything about the other. The iron rod in Son Goku's hand was getting harder and harder, while Majin Buu's hammer remained firm. Son Goku glanced at Li Su next to him. Li Su nodded at him, agreeing with Son Goku's decision. Li Su took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth, then swallowed it hard. After Li Su swallowed the pill, a painful expression appeared on his face. His body seemed to be suffering from inexplicable pain. Su glanced at Son Goku, then gritted his teeth and continued to wave the iron rod in his hand vigorously. Son Goku saw Li Su swinging the iron bar vigorously, and his heart was full of confidence. This time, Li Su's facial muscles kept shaking. Li Su felt his whole body shaking. Li Su tried hard not to shake. He kept waving the iron rod in his hand. Finally, Li Su's hands finally loosened. He gave up the support of the iron bar. The iron bar fell to the ground, making a dull sound. Li Su's face showed a look of joy. He felt his body was full of with a tremendous force. The wounds on his body were healing at a speed that the naked eye could see. Muppet, now it's my turn to fight back. Li Su stood up and said. After he finished speaking, Li Su flew into the air. He looked at the devil man puppet below. His hands were constantly waving. One by one huge iron balls flew out of his hands. All radiated dazzling light. These rays of light flew in front of the puppet and exploded quickly, and these rays of light formed a small smoke bomb in front of the puppet. The smoke and dust produced by the explosion of the smoke bomb illuminated the surroundings, and everything around was clearly visible. At this time, the Majin puppet got up from the ground. After the Majin puppet stood up, he looked at Son Goku and said, "You have a lot of moves, but unfortunately your attacks have no effect on me. Can't hurt me." Son Goku saw the Majin puppet get up from the ground. I was also very surprised in my heart, seeing Son Goku's shocked look. The Majin Muppets laughed proudly. Son Goku sneered, "Did you see it? My iron rod can revive your body again. And your wounds are healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. You can't beat me at all. Just lie on the ground obediently and wait for my arrival. I promise to beat you." As soon as Son Goku's voice fell, a small fireball the size of a fist shot out of Son Goku's hand. The small fireball quickly grew under Son Goku's control, and then formed a large fireball in the air. Son Goku's mouth opened slightly, and the small fireball slowly floated out of Son Goku's mouth. Son Goku gently touched the small fireball with his fingers, and the small fireball followed Son Goku's movements slowly. Rotates up. The little fireball keeps getting bigger, 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 and bigger in Son Goku's grasp. Majin Buu's body moved towards Son Goku's direction involuntarily. Son Goku controls this little fireball, and this little fireball is also spinning. Majin Buu also felt the abnormality of his body. At this time, his body did not obey. He kept rolling on the ground, but he didn't stop, but continued to move towards where Son Goku was. His body was getting closer and closer to Son Goku. At this moment, Son Goku suddenly reached out and grabbed the small fireball. His mouth opened again. The small fireball flew towards Majin Buu quickly. The small fireball went directly into Majin Buu's mouth, and Majin Buu also burned to ashes by this small fireball. The power of this little fireball was so powerful that Majin Buu couldn't stand it at all. Seeing that Majin Buu was burned to ashes, Son Goku breathed a sigh of relief. Son Goku glanced at his arms, only to find that his arms had become iron sheets. Son Goku was very shocked when he looked at his arms. He didn't expect Majin Buu's recovery ability to be so powerful. Majin Buu's ability is so terrifying, it's unbelievable. Son Goku put away his iron rod, he walked to the side of the puppet, and he picked up the long knife of the puppet. Son Goku walked towards the Majin Muppets with a long sword. The Majin puppet saw Son Goku coming to him with his weapon. He quickly stepped back a few steps. Son Goku saw the Majin puppet backing up. He also stepped up his steps and walked towards the devil puppet. He must defeat the devil man puppet. He must defeat the devil man puppet. The Majin Muppets saw Son Goku approaching him, and his heart panicked. Majin Muppets didn't know what Son Goku wanted to do. Ha ha ha, aren't you amazing? Why don't you continue to be amazing? Son Goku laughed and walked towards the Majin Muppets. An excited look appeared on Son Goku's face, and he had been hoping to knock down the Majin Muppets. The Majin Muppets saw Son Goku getting closer and closer, and his face also showed a flustered look. Seeing this scene, Son Goku's heart was even more excited. Just when Son Goku was about to approach the Majin Muppets, the Majin puppet suddenly disappeared in front of Son Goku. Son Goku frowned when he saw this scene. Just as Son Goku was frowning and thinking, a gust of wind suddenly blew, and Son Goku felt a cold current blowing around him. Son Goku turned his head and glanced, and he found that the devil puppet had disappeared from his side. At this moment, Son Goku couldn't help being surprised. This devil puppet was really terrible. He was able to quietly disappear in front of him without his permission, which is really terrifying. Son Goku saw that there was no one where the Majin puppet disappeared. Did this guy disappear out of thin air? Son Goku looked around suspiciously. He carefully observed the situation around him, and he found that the puppet of the devil had indeed disappeared in front of him out of thin air, with a questioning look on his face. At this time, the Majin Muppets attacked Son Goku from behind Son Goku again. This time the Majin puppet attacked Son Goku at a very good time, because the Majin puppet was behind him and his body was leaning towards Son Goku. If the Majin puppet rushed forward to Son Goku, it's very easy to knock Son Goku down. Son Goku heard the whistling sound behind him, and he hurriedly dodged to the right. Although his speed was already very fast, he was rubbed on his arm by the tail of the devil puppet. He felt a sting in his arm, and now Son Goku understood that he was hurt. He glanced at his arm. His arm had been slashed by the tail of the Majin puppet, and his arm there is blood. Son Goku looked up at the puppet, and the figure of the puppet had long since disappeared. At this moment, Son Goku felt a sharp pain spread all over his body. The pain was like thousands of ants biting his body. Pain instantly swept through his brain. At this time, Son Goku felt his eyes go dark, and then Son Goku passed out. At this time, Son Goku felt his body was slowly descending. He opened his eyes. He found himself on a slate. He saw a groove on the slate. Son Goku put his hand in the groove. I saw the slate slowly opened. Son Goku slowly slid down from the slate. Son Goku's feet stepped on the ground. Son Goku saw that the ground was a desolate grassland, and Son Goku also saw the devil cloth. Even standing in the distance beckoned to him. Son Goku slowly walked towards the puppet. Son Goku came to the puppet. He looked at the puppet, and saw a raging fire on the puppet's body. This flame only burned the puppet's skeleton, and Son Goku couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He could not have imagined that this devil puppet would be burned to death. Son Goku came to the front of the puppet. He squatted down, and checked the puppet's body carefully. He found that there were no 027 scars on the puppet. A flash of white light flashed, and Majin Buu revived. Lisu, I am the existence of wireless regeneration and resurrection. You can't defeat me. The devil puppet laughed wildly. Humph, I don't believe in defeating you. After Son Goku finished speaking, he picked up his iron rod and waved it fiercely at the puppet. The iron rod hit the puppet, but the puppet was not attacked. The iron rod fell on the body of the devil puppet. The devil puppet only flickered slightly, and then returned to a normal person again. Seeing that Son Goku had no effect on him, the Majin Muppets started dodging Son Goku's attacks. Son Goku kept waving the iron bars in his hands, and one after another hit the Majin Muppets. But every time the body of the puppet trembled slightly, and then the puppet returned to normal. Son Goku could not help frowning. He saw the Majin doll kept dodging. Son Goku knew that he could not defeat this Majin doll, so Son Goku decided to remove the iron rod. He wanted to let the Majin cloth occasionally taste the power of the iron rod. Son Goku picked up the iron rod in his hand, and then threw it at the devil puppet. Son Goku used all his strength to throw the iron rod in his hand, and the iron rod flew very fast in the air. But when he was only a few centimeters away from the Majin puppet, Son Goku felt a hint of resistance, and he knew that his iron rod would definitely touch the Majin puppet. At this time, Son Goku saw the Majin doll rolling on the ground, and the iron rod rubbed the Majin doll's body, but did not cause any damage to it. Son Goku saw this situation, so Son Goku continued to throw hard at the Majin puppet. The iron rod drew a beautiful arc in the air, and the iron rod accurately hit the Majin puppet. The iron rod hit the devil's puppet's shoulder, and the devil's puppet let out a howl of pain. The iron rod actually penetrated the devil's puppet's skin and plunged directly into him inside the flesh. CDDC, the body of the Majin puppet twitched continuously. Ha ha ha, you finally admit that you are not Son Goku. The Devil Man puppet said with a wild laugh, and a hideous smile appeared on the Devil Man puppet's face. Son Goku thought to himself after seeing the expression of the Majin puppet, I didn't expect the Majin puppet's body to be so tough. There is really no one in this world that can kill him. This guy's vitality is really tenacious. I see your body is very hard. After Son Goku finished speaking, he raised his iron rod and prepared to smash at the Majin puppet. Son Goku raised the iron rod in his hand and smashed it hard again on the body of the puppet. Son Goku went all out this time, and the puppet's body became more and more under the continuous smashing of the iron rod. Smaller. In the end, it completely turned into ashes, and after the devil puppet turned into a wisp of blue smoke and dispersed, a voice suddenly sounded in the sky, you can't kill me. Son Goku was stunned after hearing this. He looked up and saw a cloud of black mist floating in the sky. The black mist was like a person. Son Goku was shocked. He couldn't think of this devil. The puppet can really be resurrected in his hands. How did you do it? Son Goku asked. I said, there is nothing in this world that I cannot kill, even if the weapon in your hand is powerful, I can smash it. Humph? What can kill you in this world? There are only people in this world. It is true that man cannot kill me, but I can destroy it. I am like an iron rod in your hand, and I am the soul of an iron rod. After the Majin Muppets finished saying this, it attacked Son Goku. This time he unleashed a violent fist, the power of which was many times stronger than the previous fist. Son Goku hurriedly dodged. Humph. Son Goku, your dodging speed is still too slow? The Majin Muppets said sarcastically. Don't be too arrogant, I will definitely defeat you. Son Goku said. It seems that I can only find a way to seal Majin Buu. Okay, I'll wait. The devil puppet said with a sneer, said. Son Goku picked up his iron rod and attacked the puppet. Son Goku held the iron rod and smashed the puppet. This time Son Goku didn't use his full strength, because he knew that if he ran out all out, the puppet must not be his opponent. Son Goku's attack did not hit the puppet, and the puppet suddenly disappeared. Son Goku hurriedly looked around. He didn't see the figure of the Majin puppet, so Son Goku shouted, get out. Son Goku's voice echoed in the air. The puppet looked at Son Goku shouting. The puppet couldn't help laughing. Son Goku couldn't help frowning when he saw the puppet's smile. He thought to himself, is this guy kidding me? Son Goku saw the Majin puppet and ignored him, and he continued to shout, Majin Muppets, you come out to me. Humph. Stop screaming, here I am. The voice of the puppet sounded in Son Goku's ear. Son Goku heard the voice of the puppet. He turned around and looked behind him. It didn't matter if he turned around. Son Goku saw the figure of the puppet right behind him. The Majin Muppet stabbed Son Goku with a long sword. Son Goku dodged the sword with a backflip. At this time, the puppet rushed to Son Goku from behind again, and Son Goku hurriedly jumped to one side, followed by the puppet, and the puppet's palms drew two clouds in the air. After Son Goku saw the two clouds rushing towards him, he hurriedly dodged the two clouds, and after he dodged the two clouds, he dodged to another place, followed by the puppet. Along the way, he kept chasing Son Goku. Son Goku was entangled by the Majin puppet, and he couldn't get rid of the Majin puppet's entanglement. At this time, Li Xiaoyao, Son Gohan, Lin Shiki, Son Gohan, the little white fox and the leopard who were watching the battle from a distance also gathered around. At this time, Son Goku suddenly grabbed the chest of the puppet. His right hand grabbed the black robe on the chest of the puppet. The figure of the puppet suddenly disappeared. Son Goku was stunned. At this moment, the puppet appeared from behind Son Goku. Son Goku hurriedly turning his head to look at the puppet. The puppet has a long sword in the hand of the puppet, and the long sword emits a cold light under the sunlight. The Majin puppet raised the long sword in his hand and stabbed at Son Goku's body. Son Goku hurriedly moved to the side, dodging the fatal blow of the Majin puppet. Son Goku's eyes were full of anger. Time. The puppet's mouth suddenly cracked open, and countless tiny tentacles shot out from it. These tentacles instantly surrounded Son Goku. Seeing this, Son Goku hurried to the side to avoid those tentacles. At this time, the Majin puppet suddenly sprayed a black liquid on Son Goku's body. Son Goku hurriedly avoided the black liquid, and at this time, one by one tentacles flew towards Son Goku. Son Goku hurriedly resorted to a golden hoop when he saw this. Son Goku used the golden hoop stick in his hand as a stick and hit those tentacles. At this time, one by one, the tentacles were smashed by the golden hoop stick. These tentacles did not completely dissipate, and they still gathered around Son Goku, seeking flowers. Humph, do you think these things can trap me? I tell you, you are too naive. After Son Goku finished saying this, he raised the iron rod and waved it at the Majin Muppets again. The Majin puppet hurriedly avoided the iron rod swung by Son Goku, and Son Goku then swung the iron rod to attack the Majin puppet. The Majin puppet escaped Son Goku's iron rod and then again escaped Son Goku's iron rod. Iron rod. 0. Son Goku was a little annoyed when he saw that he couldn't even touch the clothes of the Majin puppet. He raised the iron rod in his hand and used his own trick. Son Goku used the skills attached to the iron rod. Son Goku has an iron rod with countless metal teeth on it. At this time, 108 steel teeth bite at the body of the puppet, and the puppet hurriedly used a magic shield to protect itself. At this time, Son Goku used all his strength to attack the puppet. After Son Goku used the skills attached to the golden hoop suddenly became many times larger. At this time, the puppet became hastily resorted to his own defense. Boom! After a loud bang, Son Goku's golden hoop slammed into the defensive technique in front of the puppet. This heavy impact weakened the puppet's defense. Son Goku quickly rushed to the Majin puppet. His hands grabbed the Majin puppet's shoulders and fell to the ground. The body of the devil puppet slammed into the ground heavily, and at this moment, a huge pothole appeared, and the body of the devil man puppet sank deep into the hole. Son Goku saw that the Majin puppet was seriously injured. He hurriedly ran towards the Majin puppet. Son Goku wanted to save the Majin puppet from the ground, but Son Goku's hands just grabbed the Majin puppet's shoulders. Son Goku felt an invisible attraction pass from the Majin Muppet's shoulders, and Son Goku's body immediately flew towards the Majin Muppets. Son Goku screamed, and he struggled hard to get himself off the Majin Muppet's body, but the more he struggled, the closer his body was to Majin Muppet's body. At this time, Son Goku suddenly saw the black long sword 027 in the hands of the Majin Puppet stabbing towards him. Son Goku hurriedly reached out and grabbed the long sword. The Majin Puppet is holding his weapon, and Son Goku grabs the Majin Puppet's black long sword. Seeing that Son Goku had grabbed his long sword, the Majin Muppets hurriedly pulled the black long sword into Son Goku's hand. At this time, Son Goku felt a powerful attraction attacking his body. Son Goku hurriedly struggled hard, but he couldn't struggle to get rid of the attraction of the Majin Muppets at all. Son Goku felt that the strength of his body was getting smaller, and Son Goku knew in his heart that he would soon be sucked into the body of the Majin Muppets. At this time, Son Goku wanted to use his last strength to attack the Majin Puppet, and he raised his right leg forcefully. The Majin Muppets hurriedly released the left hand holding the black long sword, and Son Goku took this opportunity to charge towards the Majin Muppets. At this time, Son Goku's right foot slammed into the belly of the Majin Puppet. The Majin Puppet was directly kicked out by Son Goku's kick. At this point Son Goku took a few steps back. At this time, a group of black bats flew around Son Goku. At this time, countless bats appeared around Son Goku's body. At this time, the bats opened their bloody mouths to Son Goku and bit down. Son Goku saw the bat bite down on him, and hurriedly raised the golden hoop in his hand, and the golden hoop made an earth-shattering sound. The loud noise made all the bats fly out. Damn! I must kill you today. Son Goku rushed towards the puppet with a ferocious expression. Son Goku rushed towards the puppet. At this time, a huge black magic circle appeared on the puppet, and the magic circle sent out a black aperture. This aperture shrouded the devil puppet. Son Goku saw the Majin puppet use a black magic circle, and he hurriedly waved the iron rod around the magic circle. At this moment, the metal teeth on the iron rod rushed towards the devil puppet in the magic circle. At this time, Son Goku found that the circle of light from the magic circle suddenly dissipated, and a bat escaped from the magic circle. Seeing this, Son Goku hurriedly used the skills attached to his iron rod. Son Goku used the skills attached to the iron rod at this time. The golden hoop rod has countless metal teeth on it. At this time, Son Goku used the skill attached to the iron rod. The golden hoop has countless metal teeth. At this time, Son Goku used the skill attached to the iron rod. The golden hoop has countless metal teeth. Son Goku smashed the Majin puppet with a stick. At this time, Son Goku felt that his fist was about to hit a hard rock. At this time, Son Goku felt that his arm was numb, but the Majin puppet was not damaged at all. Son Goku reluctantly attacked the Majin Muppets. At this time, Son Goku's hands grabbed the Majin puppet's legs, and at this time, Son Goku suddenly found that he could not cause damage to the Majin puppet. Son Goku's heart suddenly panicked. He knew that the skills attached to his iron rod and the skills attached to the golden hoop rod had no effect at all for this kind of devil puppet. At this moment, the puppet suddenly stood up, and he rushed towards Son Goku. Son Goku saw the puppet rushing towards him, and hurriedly ran to the distance. At this moment, the puppet suddenly used the effect of the magic circle. He heard a loud roaring sound, and at this moment, Son Goku suddenly felt that his body was tightly bound by something, and at this moment, the Majin Muppet suddenly tore the black cloak behind him. At this time, Son Goku saw the huge dark vortex behind the Majin Muppets, surrounded by sharp barbs. Son Goku knew that this was the magic enchantment of Majin Muppets 3.2. Son Goku hurriedly used the skills attached to the golden hoop, and at this time, Son Goku felt that his power had increased a lot. At this time, the Majin puppet attacked Son Goku. At this time, the Majin puppet suddenly rushed towards Son Goku. Son Goku raised the iron rod and hit the Majin puppet in the chest. Son Goku felt himself after the iron rod hit something. He pushed the iron rod back hard. At this time, Son Goku saw that the strength of the skill gold hoop attached to the iron rod had increased a lot, and Son Goku used the iron rod to smack the Majin puppet's chest hard. At this time, Son Goku felt that the power of the skills attached to the iron rod was strengthened. At this time, the Majin puppet was knocked so violently by Son Goku that the Majin puppet felt that his body was pierced. At this moment, a trace of bright red blood flowed from the corner of the devil's puppet's mouth. At this time, the puppet turned slowly and walked towards Son Goku. At this time, the puppet walked towards Son Goku, and Son Goku hurriedly raised the golden hoop and performed the magic of King Kong Indestructible. Boom! After a loud bang, Son Goku's iron rod collided with the dark vortex behind the Majin puppet, and Son Goku's iron rod collided with the dark vortex. Son Goku's golden cudgel touched the dark vortex of the puppet, and the dark vortex of the puppet was slowly melted away by the golden cudgel. At this time, the body of the Majin puppet retreated 23 times back. At this time, the Majin puppet felt that the skin of his whole body was as painful as the tip of a needle. At this time, the whole body of the Majin puppet became pitch black. At this time, the Majin puppet used the magic power of the magic circle to reverse. At this time, Son Goku saw that the skills used by the Majin puppet had changed, and his body instantly turned black. Son Goku felt a sense of danger. How is this going? Son Goku felt that his head was dizzy at this time. At this time, Son Goku's eyes went black, he fell to the ground and passed out. Son Goku passed out in a coma. At this time, the whole body of the Majin Muppets returned to normal. The Majin Muppet slowly walked to Son Goku's side and stretched out a hand towards Son Goku's head. Son Goku suddenly opened his eyes. At this time, Son Goku's eyes changed. Son Goku's eyes slowly turned red. Super Saiyan transformed. Son Goku suddenly activated Super Saiyan transformation at this time. At this time, Son Goku has doubled in size again. Ha ha ha, Son Goku has finally transformed, I'll just say it. At this time Son Goku is Super Saiyan, how could it be that he can't solve even a little minion? I should have thought of that. A man's voice suddenly sounded in Son Goku's ear. At this time, the Majin puppet has walked to Son Goku's side. At this time, the Majin puppet slowly approached Son Goku's head. At this time, the Majin puppet suddenly used the magic circle skills. At this time, the skills of the Majin puppet became more powerful than before, and at this time, a magic circle appeared on Son Goku's head. The magic circle used by the Majin Muppets is an intermediate version of the magic circle. At this time, the Super Saiyan transformation used by Son Goku is still constantly transforming, but his figure still does not stop growing. His body shape is still growing. At this time, Son Goku felt the pressure on the top of his head getting heavier and heavier. He used the power of Super Saiyan to transform into the 8th floor. At this moment, a fireball suddenly appeared on Son Goku's head. The fireball was spinning rapidly in the air, and it slowly became larger. At this time, the devil puppet felt the terrifying power of this fireball. At this time, the devil puppet hurriedly used the skills in the magic circle. At this time, the devil puppet used the black storm, which was a skill in the magic circle. The power of the black storm was very large. Boom! With a loud bang, Son Goku and the Majin Muppets flew out at the same time. At this moment, Son Goku fell to the ground. At this time, the devil puppet slowly climbed up from the ground. The Majin Muppets looked at Son Goku who fell to the ground. He slowly walked towards Son Goku. Son Goku felt the Majin Muppets coming towards him, and he used his last move, the thunder. Son Goku unleashed a thunderous strike like thunder and lightning, and at this time, Son Goku struck the Majin Muppet's chest. There is a huge difference in the power emitted by Son Goku's thunderbolt and the black magic circle made by the devil puppet. At this time, Son Goku's thunderbolt was directly used by the Devilman. The power of the magic circle that came out bounced back. At this time, the Majin puppet slowly grabbed Son Goku's body. At this time, Son Goku used the Super Saiyan transformation. At this time, Son Goku's body instantly increased to 10 meters, 030. At this time, Son Goku used the 9th layer of Super Saiyan transformation. Super Saiyan transformed into the first the 9th tier skill Super Saiyan Divine Power. At this time, after Son Goku used the Super Saiyan power, he used the Super Saiyan Aegis, and the Super Saiyan Aegis used by Son Goku blocked the magic attack of the Majin Muppets. At this time, the Devilman puppet made the second move of the God of Death. At this time, I saw that the Devilman puppet used this move of the God of Death to send out a black force. A pair of wings suddenly appeared, and a pair of wings suddenly appeared behind Son Goku. At this time, Son Goku uses angel wings. Son Goku used the last move of the Super Saiyan transformation of the Super Saiyan God of War. The Super Saiyan transformation skill of the Super Saiyan God of War. The powers cancel each other out. At this time, neither of them was injured, but at the same time, they were shocked by the power of these magic circles and spat out a mouthful of blood. How is this possible? How can you surpass my Super Saiyan God of War transformation? The Majin Muppets said to Son Goku in surprise. Humph, I'm no longer the Son Goku of the past, and you won't be the Majin Muppets? Son Goku said to Majin Muppets. At this time, the two rushed towards each other at the same time, and the two collided halfway. At this time, the Devilman puppet used the strongest trick of the Death God, and saw that his body became incomparably huge. At this time, Son Goku used the power of Super Saiyan to transform into the 3rd Super Saiyan, and I saw that the Death God of Death made by the puppet collided with the power of Super Saiyan transformed from Super Saiyan of Son Goku. At this time, Son Goku suddenly flew backwards. Son Goku stood up again after flying backwards. At this time, Son Goku felt a heart-piercing pain coming from his whole body. At this time, the devil puppet used the 4th form of death, Death Scythe. Cut off. At this time, Son Goku felt a biting pain in his neck. At this time, Son Goku used the power of the 6th Super Saiyan transformed from Super Saiyan. At this time, Son Goku felt as if he was being hit by the dagger made of reinforced concrete was slashed, and the power of Super Saiyan transformed into the 6th Super Saiyan by Son Goku was not able to stop the attack of the Majin Muppets. Son Goku suddenly leaned back. At this moment, the scythe of the puppet fell into the air. At this time, the puppet used the 7th style death beheading move. At this time, only a click was heard. Son Goku's head was cut off by the scythe of the Majin puppet, and Son Goku suddenly lost a head. At this moment, Son Goku's eyes suddenly became dark. At this time, the darkness in front of Son Goku slowly dissipated, and Son Goku was seen lying on the ground. Son Goku saw his severed head lying on the ground. At this time, Son Goku slowly sat up. At this time, Son Goku looked at the head that was cut off by him on the ground. At this time, Son Goku he walked slowly beside the corpse of the head, picked up the helmet of the head and put it on his head. At this time, Son Goku's mind suddenly flashed his own brand new ability, Super Saiyan Magic. At this time, Son Goku ran Super Saiyan Magic for a week. Son Goku felt that his whole body was full of strength. At this time, the Majin puppet walked up to Son Goku and asked Son Goku, why did you hide the 5th move of my death blade? What's the matter? When Son Goku heard the Majin Muppets say this, he smiled coldly and said to the Majin Muppets, you idiot! If you don't use such a magic circle, there is no way I can escape. Why is this? Majin Muppets asked Son Goku in confusion. Hehe, did you know that your Reaper and Death have a lot of skills? Son Goku smiled and said to the puppet. At this time, Son Goku suddenly thought of something. Son Goku suddenly said, oh, by the way, you just said that you will use the magic circle, and you will use the Death God sickle, Death Blade, Magic Array, Super Saiyan Magic and other Magic Array Super Saiyan transformations, right? Son Goku looked at the Majin Muppets and said. At this time, the puppet nodded. Son Goku smiled and said, ha ha ha, that's it, I will use Super Saiyan Magic. I will use Super Saiyan Magic. That's because I have Super Saiyan blood. I possess the power of Super Saiyan, and you are not Super Saiyan, you are just a low-level devil. Damn! The puppet looked at Son Goku angrily. At this moment, Son Goku suddenly hit the belly of the puppet with his right fist, and the puppet suddenly flew out. At this time, Son Goku rushed towards the Majin puppet. At this time, Son Goku stepped in front of the Majin puppet, and the Majin puppet suddenly used the death scythe to cut Son Goku. At this time, the figure of Son Goku suddenly disappeared from the eyes of the Majin Muppets. Majin Muppet's Death Blade's 4th form of Devil's Shadow popped out. Okay, now behind Son Goku. I saw a deep scar on the back of Son Goku's neck. At this moment, I saw a flash of golden light, and Son Goku's body suddenly disappeared. At this time, Son Goku's head suddenly appeared on the left side of the Majin Muppets. The Majin Muppets used the 8th Death Scythe of Death Blade. The figure of Son Goku suddenly appeared to the right of the Majin Muppets. The Majin Muppets used the 9th type of Death Scythe of the Death Scythe. At this time, the Devil Puppet used the 10th form of Death, the Death of Death, to come. At this time, the figure of Son Goku suddenly appeared in front of the 10th form of the Death of the God of Death. G-bang! Only a sound was heard, and the Majin Muppets Reaper beheading and Son Goku's Super Saiyan smashed the opponent's body together. At this moment, Majin Muppets Reaper beheading suddenly stopped attacking, and the God of Death. The puppet's body also stopped moving, and the devil puppet suddenly opened his eyes and looked at his hands, only to see that his right hand was broken into several pieces. At this time, the Majin Muppets found that they were still alive. At this time, the Majin Muppets jumped back a long way, and then turned to look at Son Goku. At this time, Son Goku stood up slowly, although blood was dripping from his body. However, a smile appeared on Son Goku's face, and at this time, Son Goku looked at the Majin puppet and said, "You just used the 10th form of the death of the God of Death, right? The trick you used just now is called the death of the God, right?" At this time, the devil puppet said in surprise, how did you know? Did you really learn the 9th form of the Death Blade, the death of the God of Death?" At this time, Son Goku sneered, "I know a lot of things, you are not qualified to be compared with me at all." Son Goku snorted 030 and said, "Okay, I've beaten you, it's my turn?" At this time, Son Goku rushed towards the puppet. At this time, the puppet took a step back, and then said, "My strength is much stronger than you, I don't need to be afraid of you at all." At this time, the Majin puppet stabbed Son Goku's chest. Son Goku suddenly stretched out his palm and patted the Majin puppet's chest. At this time, Son Goku felt that his hand suddenly penetrated the Majin puppet body of. How is this possible? Son Goku's eyes widened as he looked at the body of the Majin puppet he had penetrated, and at this moment, he heard only a strong smell of blood spurting out of the Majin puppet's chest. The Devilman puppet suddenly let out a painful howl, and then his body disappeared into ashes. At this moment, a flame suddenly appeared, CDDC, where the demon puppet was turned into ashes, and the flame suddenly burned, and the flame quickly surrounded a pile of white powder on the ground. These powders slowly solidified and became similar to lime. At this moment, a mass of ashes that the puppet turned into suddenly reappeared within the puppet's body. At this time, the body of the Majin puppet regained its vitality. At this time, the Majin puppet looked at Son Goku, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. At this time, Son Goku looked at the Majin puppet with full of eyes. With a look of disdain, Son Goku said, "Magic puppet, I accidentally missed it just now, this time, I must win you." After Son Goku finished speaking, Son Goku charged towards the demon puppet again. At this moment, the Majin Muppets suddenly raised their hands and slashed Son Goku with the samurai sword in their hands. Son Goku suddenly flashed to the side, only to hear a loud bang, and the Majin Muppets' weapons slashed directly into the air. At this time, the Majin Muppets attacked Son Goku again. At this time, Son Goku suddenly used Super Saiyan's second style instant transmission to move towards the Majin Muppets. At this time, the speed of the Majin Muppets was much faster than before, and I saw his figure suddenly appear behind Son Goku, and then he raised his samurai sword and stabbed Son Goku in the back. At this time, the devil puppet suddenly felt that his knife had pierced into the air. At this time, the devil puppet quickly retracted the samurai sword. At this time, the devil puppet suddenly found that his knife had been inserted into the ground. At this time, the devil puppet couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Only heard a click. With a sound, the samurai sword of the Majin Muppets fell off the ground. At this time, Son Goku saw the surprised expression of the puppet, so he asked the puppet, "Now it's your turn." At this time, Son Goku suddenly rushed towards the Majin puppet, and the Majin puppet suddenly jumped to the side. Son Goku looked at the Majin puppet jumping backwards. Son Goku suddenly said, "You just used the 10th form of the death of the god of death, and now it should be my last style of Super Saiyan magic, but this time I will definitely not. You will easily escape my blow. Your body will not regenerate." At this time, Li Su and Son Goku both transformed into the ultimate Super Saiyan, united and shouted, "Ultimate Kamehameha Wave!" Ah! At this time, the body of the Majin Muppets was simultaneously attacked by Son Goku and Li Su's Super Kamehameha Waves. As soon as Son Goku's Kamehameha wave touched the body of the Majin puppet, a huge explosion force was generated, and the Majin puppet's body turned to ashes in an instant. At this time, the ashes of the devil puppet were all scattered in the heaven and earth. It was finally over. Majin Buu died under the ultimate Kamehameha wave. Let's go Goku, let's part here and continue to find Dragon Ball. Well, if there is a situation, we will use the communication radar to contact us. Come on, the two separated. Li Su landed on Namek. As soon as he landed, Li Su was teleported by Dragon Ball's teleportation array to the office on the top floor of a high-rise building in Namek. At this time, Li Su was sitting on the chair on the desk, and saw a man dressed in black suddenly appear in front of Li Su's eyes. I saw the man in black said, "I have checked, you are indeed in Namek, and now I will take you to the location of Dragon Ball's treasure." At this time, Li Su followed the man in black and left the office on the top floor of the high-rise building. At this time, Li Su found himself on a small island. There was a lot of seawater around the island, and there were many shells floating in the seawater. There are also many fish in the waters around the island, and I saw many shells and fishes playing in the sea. Seeing this, Li Su couldn't help sighing. I didn't expect that I could meet high people in Namek. The man in black said, "Let's go." After speaking, the man in black took Li Su and flew to the middle of the ocean. Soon, they came to an island. They saw that the island was full of sandy beaches. In the center of the sandy beach was a huge island. The island was covered with lush green plants. In the center of the island was a lush forest. Among the trees, a towering building was vaguely seen. At this time, the man in black said to Li Su, "Come in, I will wait for you outside." After Li Su nodded, he flew to the island. Soon, Li Su came to the island, and saw a very strange scene on the island. There were many stones on the ground of the island, and each stone was different in shape. Some looked like a giant spider, some looked like a boa constrictor, some looked like a crocodile. Li Su couldn't help feeling strange when he saw this, and he couldn't help but look around. When Li Su saw the scene around him, he couldn't help but wonder, where exactly is this place? Where did these strange stones come from? Could my Super Saiyan magic be able to deform a world? Li Su, I thought to myself. I think you should be here for the first time. A woman's voice suddenly sounded in Li Su's mind. At this moment, Li Su looked at the woman in front of him. I saw this woman was tall and slender, wearing a white dress. Her skin was a healthy wheat color. Her face was very delicate. Her eyes were very bright, clear, and thorough. Her nose was straight, and her red lips were slightly raised. The face gives a very clean visual enjoyment. Li Su's heart beat faster when he saw the appearance of the woman in front of him. I saw this woman say, "Are you curious about who I am?" "Yes, I am indeed curious," Li Su said. At this moment, Li Su suddenly thought of something, so he said, "Are you the woman who has a magical orb in the legend?" "Yes, I am that mysterious woman, and my name is Maria." Maria looked at Li Su and said, "Maria's voice is very beautiful." At this time, Li Su said, "How did you know I came here? I don't even know what you look like," Li Su said. At this time, Li Su was very surprised, because he didn't even know when Maria appears beside you. "You are lucky to find Dragon Ball. Yes, the 5-star Dragon Ball is here for me, but if you want to help me accomplish one thing, I will give it to you," Maria said with a smile. "For flowers? Well, I promise you," Li Su said. "Well, now you come with me first," Maria said. "It is good." At this time, Li Su and Maria came to a luxurious restaurant. At this time, Li Su saw a variety of rich foods on the table. "Please take a seat, this is my favorite French meal," Maria said. "Thanks," Li Su said, then picked up the utensils and started tasting the lunch slowly. "How about it? It tastes good?" Maria said with a smile. It's really delicious," Li Su said with a smile, and then took a few more steaks to eat. 0, 0. After eating, Maria looked at Li Su and said, help me kill the ultimate cyborg Cell. He wants to destroy our Namek, I hope you can help us. Okay, no problem, I'll deal with him now. When Li Su heard Maria's words, he immediately stood up and prepared to rush to Cell's residence. Don't worry, you have to tell me, how did you know I was here? Li Su sat down and said to Maria, he felt that Maria's appearance was too weird, and Li Su felt that there must be a conspiracy. Hehe, my luck is really good, this time my luck is not good, I just came to this island and found the Dragon Ball on Namek here. You're the third human I've ever seen to enter this island, and you're the only one who can see Dragon Ball. I felt someone approaching when I was off the island before, but I didn't expect you to come. Maria said. Maria looked very excited. You are amazing. I almost lost my way when I was in the sea just now, thank you for saving me. How did you find Dragon Ball on Namek? Li Su asked. Li Su knew that there must be many magical beings in this world, and he wanted to know the abilities of these magical beings. Of course I was able to find it. If I wanted to find it was easy. Maria said. Where is that Cell now? As long as you use the power radiated from the Dragon Ball, you can attract Cell. I'll try it now, Li Su said. At this time, Li Su closed his eyes and used his mental power to sense the surrounding environment. At this time, Li Su sensed a powerful force around him, and there was a familiar aura about 030, and Li Su couldn't help opening his eyes. Look, the breath here has something to do with Dragon Ball on Namek. Maria looked at the surrounding atmosphere and said. Li Su said. At this time, Li Su used his divine sense to probe the surrounding aura, and at this moment, Li Su's divine sense felt a huge power. When Li Su's consciousness detected this powerful force, Li Su couldn't help but be startled. What kind of power is this, such a strong power? Li Su exclaimed. Hehe, I think this is the divine power here. As long as the power of the Dragon Ball is used to stimulate the divine power here, the divine power here can be reflected. Maria said. That said, the divine power here has been activated by me. Li Su said. That's right. As long as you use the power of the Dragon Ball to activate the gods here, they will automatically attack you. Therefore, you must not use them to harm you, because your godhead will be severely damaged. Maria reminded. I see, Li Su said. Then, not long after, a black hole suddenly appeared in the sky. It was an artificial human cell. I saw that cell's body had a tail and thorns, used to absorb the essence of the human body, like a green insect, with an irregular face. Li Su, take it, light bullet. At this moment, Li Su's figure dodged, avoiding Cell's blow. This time, Li Su avoided the blow, but at this time Li Su felt some pain in his body. Ah, you are fast. But I will be faster. At this point, Cell said. I saw him show his teeth and claws, like a green spider. I saw him running towards Li Su at an astonishingly fast speed. At this time, Li Su's heart was very nervous, and Li Su felt an unprecedented pressure. At this time, Li Su used teleport to escape. Li Su hid in a tree, then quietly looked in front of him. At this moment, his heart was thumping and beating non-stop. At this time, Cell also caught up. My speed is too fast, you can't escape my speed at all, this time you are dead. At this time, Cell said loudly. Hearing this sentence, Li Su couldn't help but beat a drum in his heart, only to see that Cell was getting closer and closer to him at this time. At this time, Li Su couldn't help but get nervous. He instantly activated the power of Super Saiyan. This protective film could block Li Su from being attacked. At this moment, Cell punched Li Su. At this time, Li Su blocked with his arm, but his arm was still hurt by Cell's shock. I see how you block, Cell said, and Cell attacked Li Su again. Li Su hurriedly dodged, but Cell's fist came again. Li Su kept dodging, but every time he narrowly avoided Cell's attack. I can't go on like this, I'll be killed by this Cell sooner or later, Li Su thought to himself. Li Su knew that Cell's attack was difficult to resist, so Li Su decided not to hide. So, Li Su held Dragon Ball in his hand, ready to use his divine sense to control the power of Dragon Ball. As soon as Li Su's consciousness entered Dragon Ball, he was immediately enveloped by Dragon Ball's divine power. Then, Dragon Ball released a dazzling blue light, and the blue light became brighter and brighter. Li Su immediately felt the power in Dragon Ball, a mysterious power that no one in this world knew about. There is a powerful power in Dragon Ball, and the power in Dragon Ball will devour Li Su's consciousness, so what Li Su has to do now is to subdue Dragon Ball. Li Su's consciousness is wandering in Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball has a lot of divine power, which is huge. Therefore, it will take Li Su a long time to conquer all the divine power of Dragon Ball, and Li Su also needs to prevent divine power from resisting, because only by subduing Dragon Ball's power can Li Su be able to control Dragon Ball. Stop struggling and cooperate with me obediently. At this point, Cell said 3.2. Cell saw that Li Su didn't mean to resist, so Cell boldly said it, and at this moment, the corner of Cell's mouth showed a sinister smile. I will not give in, Li Su said. Well, then don't blame me for being rude. Cell roared, and he opened his mouth wide. Li Su saw the green spider pounce on him. At this time, Li Su threw the Dragon Ball into the air, and immediately, Cell's mouth opened wider, and he saw a cloud of green smoke from Cell's open mouth, and the smoke slowly formed a snake-shaped thing. I saw that the spider opened its mouth and bit Li Su's foot, and then pulled Li Su's leg off. Ow! Li Su cried out in pain. I want you to die, At this moment, the green spider let out an angry roar. At this time, I saw the green spider slammed Li Su out. Li Su was dizzy from the fall, and Li Su fell from the air to the ground. At this time, Li Su was lying on the ground. He felt severe pain all over his body. I want you to die. I want you to taste failure. At this time, Cell said. Cell slowly crawled towards Li Su. Li Su felt cold all over his body. His skin was scratched by Cell, and blood remained along the wound. No, I must not lose. At this moment, Li Su said, and then Li Su stood up. His legs turned into two 23-strong steel bars. Li Su stood up and charged towards Cell. Cell saw Li Su's behavior very strange. Li Su's body suddenly changed. Impossible? At this moment, Cell shouted. Li Su came to Cell, then swung his right foot and kicked Cell's head fiercely, only to see Cell slammed into the wall. At this moment, Cell's forehead was hit and a huge hole appeared. At this moment, Cell fell to the ground. At this time, there was a red bead in Li Su's hand. Li Su was very excited when he saw the bead. He quickly picked up the bead and looked at it. Li Su found that the bead was actually a Dragon Ball. The color of this bead is purple. Li Su knows that his luck is coming, because Dragon Ball is the sacred object of the Dragon family. It contains powerful power, and the Dragon Ball is the treasure of the gods. I can finally use the power of Dragon Ball, Li Su said happily. Li Su didn't expect that his Dragon Ball could use so much power, and his divine power also improved a lot. At this time, Li Su put the Dragon Ball in his mouth and swallowed all the power of the Dragon Ball into his stomach. After Li Su absorbed all the power of Dragon Ball, he felt that the power in his body increased again. At this moment, Li Su looked at the fallen Cell. Li Su snorted coldly, "This time you will not win again." Li Su now had the chance to win. At this moment, Li Su stepped on Cell's body with his foot, only to see Li Su's foot stepping hard, only to hear the bones rattling. I saw Cell's chest collapsed, and Cell let out a painful howl. "I won't lose to you," Cell said, and then, Cell picked up a stone from his side and threw it at Li Su. At this time, Li Su's consciousness swept away and found that Cell was holding a stone, so Li Su's consciousness swept away and found that Cell was holding a wooden stick. Li Su looked at Cell, then smiled contemptuously. At this moment, Li Su waved his right hand, and the wooden stick in Cell's hand flew far away, fell to the ground and shattered. What? Cell let out a scream, and there was a big hole in his wrist, and blood kept flowing out. At this time, Cell endured the pain and smeared his own blood on the wound, which soon stopped bleeding. "You can't fight me, you should surrender obediently," Li Su said. At this moment, Li Su's eyes were fixed on Cell. "Are you challenging me?" Cell said. "Yes, I just challenge you. I want you to kneel on the ground and beg for mercy," Li Su said. "Don't you think about it," Cell said. At this time, Li Su released all the pressure of Dragon Ball, and Li Su's body emerged with a powerful momentum, which was soaring to the sky. At this time, Cell looked at the imposing Li Su. He knew that this was the breath of the Dragon family, and he didn't dare to be careless. "I don't care what you are, today I'm going to kill you and take my things back," Cell said. At this time, Li Su launched an attack. At this time, Cell also started. Cell's attack was very sharp, and Cell's claws were as sharp as a blade, tearing people apart as soon as they were caught. Although Li Su's defense is strong, it is not as good as Cell's claws 030. At this moment, Li Su saw that Cell's sharp claw pierced his left shoulder, and blood flowed out immediately. Li Su endured the pain and continued to attack Cell. Cell's body was very agile and could always dodge Li Su's attacks, but Li Su repeatedly hit the wall, all his attacks failed, and Li Su was also injured. "Is this the only thing you can do? Haha, if you only have this, you can't beat me." At this time, Cell said arrogantly. "I can definitely beat you." At this time, Li Su said. After Li Su finished speaking, he continued to attack. Li Su's attack is very ferocious, and every move has unparalleled power. When Li Su's fist hits Cell, there will be a popping sound. Li Su's every move is very heavy. If this goes on, Li Su will kill Cell. While fighting, Li Su tried to find a solution, only to see Li Su's eyes suddenly lit up. He thought of a solution. He released all the dragon blood in his body. At this time, a golden light appeared on Li Su's forehead, and then Li Su's fingers became longer, his nails became longer, his fingertips became pointy, his nails became longer, and the sharpness of his nails became longer. Also increased a lot. Li Su released all the dragon blood in his body this time. Li Su's strength also increased greatly. When Cell saw the changes in Li Su, his face was full of surprise. At this moment, Li Su's fingertip flicked. Li Su's finger flicked out, and hit Cell's neck directly. Made into meat sauce. "It's really cool. I didn't expect to get such a powerful Dragon Ball power in a place like this. It's great. Damn, Li Su, you forced me to open the second form." Second stage. Direct Cell still has a tail, a strong physique, looks more human, and his face begins to resemble a human face, with large lips, and has the ability to change voice. "Go to hell, Li Su. Take it, Hell Bazooka." Cell went crazy. At this moment, Cell's lips suddenly opened, and a blob of blue flame spit out from Cell's mouth. The blue fireball rolled on the ground, and finally, rolled in front of Li Su. At this moment, Cell flicked his tail, and the blue flame burned towards Li Su. The temperature of the flame was very high, and the speed was very fast, and Li Su could not dodge. At this critical juncture, Li Su suddenly took out the dragon egg from the ring in his left hand. Li Su threw the dragon egg out, then he quickly backed away, and kicked Cell with his right foot. Then Li Su threw the dragon egg out. Use the reaction force to quickly retreat to avoid Cell's pursuit. Cell's body is large and moves very fast. At this time, Li Su hid behind a tree and hid in the branches. Boom, boom, boom. Cell's claws made a few marks on the tree trunk. Li Su hid in the tree trunk and watched Cell's attack. Cell then used his tail to swipe at the tree trunk, only to hear a few snaps, and the trunk was snapped. At this moment, Cell's tail swept towards Li Su. Li Su looked at the flying tail, and he hurriedly threw the stone in his hand. At this moment, Cell's tail and Li Su's stone collided with each other. Only a thud was heard, and the stone shattered. Li Su's arm was also numb from the shock. At this time, Cell's tail had reached Li Su's face. Li Su hurriedly dodged, only to see a pebble flying out of Li Su's head. The pebble flew to Cell's tail, and then exploded with a bang. Li Su took this opportunity to flee quickly. Li Su kept running for 500 meters before stopping. He was almost hit by the tail just now. If it wasn't for Li Su's dodging in time, he would definitely have been shot into a patty. Li Su escaped the tail attack just now, and now he doesn't have time to check his injuries, because Cell is about to catch up. If he is caught by Cell, he will be miserable. So, at this time, Li Su desperately fled far away. Can you run away? At this moment, a cold voice came from behind. I saw Cell grabbing Li Su's shoulder with his claws. At this moment, Li Su turned around and shot the stone in his hand towards Cell. Cell didn't expect Li Su to use this move, but the stone in Li Su's hand hit Cell. Cell cried out in pain. At this time, Li Su saw the opportunity and slashed at Cell with the other two swords in his hands. When Li Su's sword hit Cell, Cell's body disappeared instantly. Li Su is wondering, where did this guy go? At this moment, Cell appeared behind Li Su, and his tail slapped Li Su fiercely. Li Su saw Cell's tail slapping towards him. He quickly dodged to the side. In this way, Li Su dodged Cell's attack, but Cell didn't give up. His tail drew a beautiful arc in midair and then slapped Li Su again. Li Su saw Cell pounce on his again. At that time, he hurriedly dodged, but Cell's tail kept following Li Su, and Li Su kept dodging. However, Cell's tail looks like it has eyes. Cell's attacks are very dense, and every tail will be drawn towards Li Su. At this time, Li Su had been cornered, and he had nowhere to go. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the power of the dragon on his body suddenly increased a lot and more and more. At this time, the dragon power on Li Su's body became more and more strong, and the clothes on Li Su's body began to tatter. Li Su found that at this time he had no way out, and he had to bite the bullet and face it. As soon as Li Su waved his dragon claw, he slapped it on Cell's tail. Then, at this moment, the scales on Cell's tail suddenly exploded, the scales exploded, and Cell's tail was also injured. Now I can finally kill this Cell. At this moment, Cell inserted its claws into Li Su's chest. Poof! Only a slight sound was heard, and a hole was stabbed in Li Su's chest by Cell's claws. A black hole appeared in Li Su's chest immediately. Li Su's blood slowly flowed out along the hole. Haha, you're going to die this time, boy. Cell laughed. Humph? Who might die? Li Su snorted coldly. After Li Su finished speaking, he kicked his legs hard, and saw that Li Su's body shot forward like an arrow from the string. Boom, boom, boom. Li Su launched a series of attacks at Cell with his dragon power. Cell was a little irritated by Li Su. He used his claws to slap away the stones that Li Su shot, and then, Cell's tail rolled up, and then rolled up Li Su. Li Su was rolled into Cell's mouth. Cell opened his mouth, and then bit Li Su's throat. Seeing that Cell's mouth was about to bite, Li Su quickly resisted with dragon claws. With a bang, Li Su's dragon claws collided with Cell's teeth, and then Li Su felt severe pain all over his body. Roar! Cell roared up to the sky. I saw that Li Su felt a huge force tearing at him. The tearing force was getting bigger and bigger, and Li Su's body was also getting bigger. Li Su knew that he was about to turn into a super monster. At this time, Li Su's mind suddenly remembered the words on the stone. You have to remember, the dragon family is inviolable. You have to remember. The dragons are a group of sacred and powerful creatures. You must not provoke the dragons, otherwise, you will die miserably. Li Su shouted. The ultimate Super Saiyan transformed? Li Su's skin slowly turned red, then, Li Su's skin became extremely hard, and then, Li Su became a giant. Li Su is 20 meters tall, with golden skin, golden hair, golden eyes, and golden tail. Li Su's current image is simply Wolverine in Super Saiyan. Li Su stood where he was, looking at Cell in front of him. Cell's mouth kept spitting bubbles. It was brewing a more powerful attack. At this moment, Li Su suddenly raised his hand, and two fist-sized golden circles appeared on his hands, with golden electric lights in the circles. This was the skill Li Su had just learned, Thunder Crit. Li Su hit Cell's head with the dragon's claw, and Cell saw that there were golden thunderbolts on Li Su's palm, and it quickly lowered its head to avoid Li Su's attack. Humph, just let you taste our dragon clan's true dragon fist? Li Su shouted loudly. Li Su's right hand raised his fist, and the golden electric light on the fist gathered more and more, and finally formed a golden fist, and the golden fist exuded a powerful pressure. Li Su's hand smashed towards Cell. Seeing this, Cell quickly retracted his head into the ground, and then hid in the ground. Bang! Li Su's fist hit the ground. Li Su felt a shock, and at this moment, Cell got out of the ground. At this moment, Li Su looked at his hand, and his punch just now seemed to hit a mountain. At this moment, Li Su felt that the energy in his body was pouring towards his fist. At this time, Li Su felt, CDDC, that his power was gradually increasing, while Cell's speed was slowly decreasing. At this time, Li Su felt that Cell's strength was not enough to keep Cell in the water, so Li Su decided to throw Cell on the shore. Li Su quickly swam to the shore and threw Cell on it. Cell fell to the ground, it looked at its injured body, and then growled at Li Su. Ow! Cell's voice echoed in the forest, and the birds in the whole forest were frightened and fled everywhere. After a while, the place became quiet, and only two living creatures, Li Su and Cell, remained. At this time, Li Su's consciousness became confused, and his will was constantly exhausted. Li Su looked at Cell and said, I have already lost. Cell staggered and walked in front of Li Su, pointed his sharp claws at Li Su, and then smelled Li Su's body with his nose. Li Su smelled the foul odor on his body by Cell, and he suddenly felt nauseated. At this time, Cell opened his mouth and said to Li Su, hurry up and feed me your blood. At this time, Li Su looked at Cell and said, I will not give in. At this moment, Cell showed a ferocious expression. It looked at Li Su and said, you have no right to choose. Hurry up and feed me your blood. At this time, Li Su looked at Cell and said, if I refuse to eat your blood, will you kill me? At this moment, Cell showed a cruel smile, and its face became hideous. At this moment, Cell opened his mouth and bit down on Li Su. At this moment, Li Su closed his eyes and waited for death to come. At this critical moment, Cell was kicked in the stomach by something, and it screamed in pain. Li Su opened his eyes, he looked at Cell. A big hole was kicked out of Cell's stomach, and all the meat in the big hole was exposed. At this time, Cell's blood flowed out along the hole, filling the hole quickly. Ouch! Cell shouted angrily, and then ran out of the big hole. Ouch! Cell screamed in the woods, and then it flew back to the pool. At this moment, Li Su felt his body return to its normal size. At this time, Li Su's eyes were fixed on the front, and it turned out that Vegeta was coming. Li Su, how are you? I'll help you get rid of this guy. After Vegeta finished speaking, he rushed over. Li Su saw Vegeta coming to save himself. Li Su felt very excited. He knew that Vegeta must have come to save him. Vegeta's strength Li Su is clear. Li Su knows that Vegeta's strength is definitely not comparable to ordinary fighters. He is the third generation of Super Saiyan. Li Su saw Vegeta rush towards Cell. Cell's body was jumping in the forest, and it was very fast. Vegeta saw Cell rushing towards him. Vegeta hurriedly threw his dragon horn towards Cell, and a fierce wind emanated from the dragon horn, going straight to Cell's body. Cell felt a force from the dragon's horn, and it couldn't help but stop. Vegeta took this opportunity to charge up and punched Cell's body hard. With a bang, Cell was knocked flying, and it fell heavily on the tree. Then, Cell slid from the tree and fell into the lake, causing countless ripples. After Cell fell into the water, it quickly got up and swam out quickly. Ouch! Cell screamed in the water. Listening to Cell's scream, Li Su knew that it had failed, so he gave up the idea of continuing to entangle with Cell, and he was ready to leave here quickly. At this moment, Cell suddenly swam towards Li Su. Li Su looked at the Cell swimming towards him, and Li Su was very worried. Li Su swam a few steps forward quickly. Cell saw that Li Su was about to run away, so he also swam over quickly, chasing after Li Su quickly. At this time, Cell was swimming very fast, and it quickly approached Li Su. Li Su panicked for a while. Li Su watched his distance from the shore getting farther and farther, so he swam and ran towards the shore with all his strength. At this time, Li Su finally reached the shore. Li Su's body turned quickly on the shore. Li Su's body was spinning rapidly. At this moment, Li Su looked at the Cell that was swimming towards him not far away. So, while spinning, Li Su quickly ran towards the shore. He wanted to leave here. Ouch! At this moment, Cell was chasing after Li Su. Bang! At this time, Li Su's body hit the mountain. Li Su's body was blocked by the mountain, but Li Su was not injured. He continued to swim forward. At this moment, Cell also arrived at Li Su's side. Li Su pushed Li Su to swim forward while using his power, and a white lightning struck him. Cell saw a lightning strike from Li Su, so it avoided the lightning and grabbed it with its sharp claws. Click! Cell caught the lightning. When Cell tried his best, the lightning was torn apart by Cell. Cell continued to charge towards Li Su. Cell's sharp claws grabbed Li Su fiercely. Li Su hurriedly dodged, but Cell's claws still cut through Li Su's clothes. At this time, Vegeta arrived. Li Su watched Vegeta come to save himself, and he was very happy. At this time, Vegeta's claws grabbed Cell. Cell hurriedly dodged, and then it continued to charge towards Li Su, seeking flowers. At this time, Vegeta's offensive was even more violent. Cell kept dodging, but there were already more scars on its body. At this time, Vegeta looked at the wound on Cell's body, and stabbed Cell with his own claws. Poof! Vegeta stabbed Cell through the body. Ouch! Cell was stabbed to the core, but it was still not reconciled, and it continued to pounce on Vegeta. At this time, Vegeta stabbed Cell again, and Cell dodged Vegeta's attack again. 0. Ouch! Cell continued to pounce. At this time, Vegeta's sharp claws plunged in again, and another blood hole appeared in Cell's body. Ouch! Cell howled in pain. It looked at Li Su with resentment and hatred in its eyes. Ouch! Cell charged up again. Vegeta saw Cell's body rushing towards him again, so he quickly grabbed Cell's body with his hands, and then pulled it hard, and Cell's body was pulled to Vegeta's palm. Li Su saw that Cell's body was pulled to Vegeta's palm again, which made Li Su tremble with fear. Vegeta grabbed Cell's body and lifted it up. At this time, Vegeta looked at the Cell in his hand, and stabbed Cell's abdomen with his sharp dragon horn. Vegeta's dragon horn stabbed into Cell's belly fiercely, and Cell let out a scream, and then, Cell's body began to shake violently, and then he saw that Cell's body slowly melted and turned into a pool of water, flows into the lake. Just then, a flash of light, Damsion, evolve! Completely submerged. Cell's body is formed into wings, and the tail is retracted into the wings, which can be used to release small cells, and if Cell itself can stretch and absorb others, the feet are like human feet, and the face is more human-like. Die to me! Cell went berserk. Its wings beat violently against the lake. Li Su felt a threat in his heart as he watched Cell become stronger. Ow! Cell charged towards Li Su with its teeth and claws open, its mouth wide open, revealing 2 sharp teeth. Its 2 rows of fangs were very sharp, as if it was about to bite off anything. Cell's mouth quickly approached Li Su, and Li Su had no choice but to hide. Cell's mouth pecked hard at Li Su. Li Su wanted to hide, but he felt that he had been locked and could not move at all. Pfft! Li Su's body was pecked, and blood spurted out. Li Su covered his injured shoulder and looked at Cell. Ha ha ha! At this moment, Li Su couldn't help laughing. Cell's eyes were very fierce. He continued to rush towards Li Su, and its mouth kept pecking at Li Su. Li Su looked at Cell rushing over and prayed in his heart that he would never be touched by Cell. At this time, Cell's mouth finally pecked Li Su. Cell's mouth pecked Li Su's chest. At this moment, Li Su's chest was immediately poked with a big wound. At this moment, Li Su hurriedly used his supernatural powers to heal his wounds. However, he felt the pain from the wound was unbearable. Ah! Li Su couldn't help screaming. Ouch! Cell heard Li Su's scream, so it continued to open its mouth and peck at Li Su's chest. Li Su felt the pain, so he hurriedly used his powers to heal his wounds. Li Su looked at his chest and was very angry. At this moment, he hurriedly used his ability to repair the wound. At this moment, Li Su felt a pain. Li Su knew that the wound on his chest was destroyed by Cell. Li Su looked at the huge wound on his chest. He couldn't help feeling a burst of fear. He knew that if there were scars on his chest damaged by Cell, it meant that he would not be able to evolve in the future. Thinking of this, Li Su endured the pain from his chest and quickly used his supernatural powers to mend the wound on his chest. Phew! After a long time, Li Su felt that the wound on his chest was healed. At this time, Li Su breathed a sigh of relief, and at the same time, he saw that Cell was still rushing towards him. Li Su hurriedly used his ability to escape. At this time, Li Su quickly used instant transmission. Cell followed, and then kept chasing Li Su. Bang! Li Su's body suddenly flew out and fell heavily on the desert. Li Su stood up at this time, and he looked at Cell not far ahead. At this moment, Cell has returned to its original shape. Its body is many times larger than before, and its head and eyes have grown out. The scales on its body are more obvious, and the horns on its head are sharper. At this time, Li Su saw a huge scorpion. Li Su quickly used Blink, and he used Teleport to come to the other side. At this time, Cell saw that his prey had disappeared. Cell felt helpless, it didn't know what to do. At this moment, Li Su looked at Cell in the distance. At this moment, Li Su hurriedly used his supernatural powers. Blue rays of light flew out from the palm of his hand, and these rays of light quickly hit Cell. Ouch! Cell hurriedly waved his palm, and its palm faced the blue beam. Bang! The blue light hit Cell's palm. At this moment, Cell let out a whimper, and its palm was hit. Then, it quickly retracted its own palm. At this moment, a large hole appeared in Cell's palm, and then, blood kept flowing out. At this time, Cell felt pain, and its body kept twisting. Its tears kept flowing, but it didn't stop struggling. At this time, Cell felt that the pain in his body was getting worse and worse, so he quickly turned around and fled here. Watching Cell escape, Li Su hurriedly followed behind. Just as Li Su followed Cell, Li Su saw a huge boulder behind Cell. He rushed over and wanted to hit Cell with the boulder. At this moment, Li Su saw Cell turn to one side, and then, the boulder smashed 3.2 points, and it fell to the ground. At this time, Li Su saw that Cell was running away. He didn't dare to chase anymore. He hurriedly used his ability to fly into the air. At this time, he looked at Cell below, and then he quickly used teleportation. At this moment, the figure of Cell disappeared in front of his eyes. Whoosh! Li Su's ability was used again, and his body flew to the heights. At this time, when Li Su saw Cell's body appearing in front of him, it was attacking itself. It kept attacking itself. Li Su hurriedly avoided. Cell repeatedly attacked Li Su, but Li Su easily escaped. After Li Su dodged a round of Cell's attack, he saw that Cell's attack gradually weakened. At this time, Li Su saw the opportunity and hurriedly used his ability to fly to Cell's side, and then he used Fireball to attack Cell. Boom! Cell's body was hit by the fireball, and at this moment, Cell hurried back. At this time, Li Su's ability was activated in succession. He used several fireballs in a row, and the continuous fireballs hit Cell's body. Li Su's purpose was to blow it up. At this moment, Cell hurriedly dodged, but the flames launched by Li Su were too powerful. Its defense was not enough, it was injured by the flames, and the scales on its body were cracked. Seeing that Cell was injured by himself, Li Su hurriedly used Blink and disappeared in front of Cell. At this time, Li Su used Teleport again, and he saw that Cell was still rolling on the ground. Li Su couldn't help laughing. His move was really effective. Out 23. At this moment, Cell let out another roar. Li Su couldn't help being shocked when he heard its roar. At this time, Li Su saw that Cell attacked again. Li Su's body dodged to the side again. Cell was chasing him all the time. The two of them were playing non-stop in the sky, and at this time, Li Su's ability became weaker and weaker. Li Su knew that if this consumption continued, he would definitely lose. Because Cell's defense is very strong, he will not be hurt by himself. At this moment, Cell suddenly launched an attack on himself. At this moment, Li Su felt that Cell's attack power was very strong. At this moment, Li Su hurriedly used Blink. He dodged Cell's attack. Ouch! The Cell let out a roar. Li Su knew that the Cell was already angry. Li Su felt that Cell was very dangerous at this time, because he could no longer fight. At this time, Li Su's body quickly retreated. At this time, Cell quickly chased after Li Su. Li Su saw this, and quickly used the flash. He quickly flashed to the safety zone. At this time, Li Su saw that Cell's attack was in vain. At this time, Cell saw that Li Su was gone, and it started to look around. At this time, it saw Li Su sneak attacking it behind it. Li Su's sneak attack made Cell feel very annoyed. Cell kept hissing. Li Su knew that this Cell's voice was too ugly, so he couldn't listen to it. At this time, Li Su's body quickly became smaller, and soon, he became the size of a small mouse, and then, he slowly crawled over. Li Su was going to give it another note when it was not paying attention attack violently. At this moment, Li Su saw Cell turned around and looked at him. At this moment, Li Su quickly retracted his head in fright. At this moment, Cell's body suddenly disappeared into the air. At this moment, Li Su looked at the place where Cell disappeared. He didn't know where Cell had gone. At this moment, Cell's angry voice came from Li Su's ears. Cry. Hearing Cell's voice, Li Su hurriedly looked towards the location of Cell's cry, when he saw Cell running towards him. Cell's speed is too fast, it has run in front of him. Cell swung his teeth and claws at him. At this moment, Li Su quickly used teleportation. Li Su's body quickly moved to the back of Cell. At this time, Cell's attack failed, it kept roaring at Cell. At this time, Li Su heard Cell's cry, ouch. Li Su looked at Cell's vicious appearance. He didn't dare to approach Cell anymore. He knew that if he approached Cell, it would be death. At this moment, Li Su hurriedly used the flash and left here quickly. He came to his room. Li Su hurriedly closed the door, and then, he lay on the bed panting heavily. He had exhausted him just now. He did not expect that Cell's power would be so great. After Li Su took a few breaths, he sat up quickly, and then began to adjust his state. At this time, Li Su's body was slowly recovering. At this time, Li Su began to exercise to heal his injuries. After a while, he felt that his body was almost recovered, and he began to use the water element. At this time, Li Su used the power of the water element. A cloud of white mist immediately appeared around his body. At this time, Li Su used the power of the water element to wrap himself up. Li Su used the wind power. 033 At this moment, Li Su used the lightning power. At this moment, Li Su hurriedly flashed. At this moment, Li Su came to Cell and launched an attack. At this time, he sent out several lightning bolts, and then his hands clenched the lightning bolts and attacked Cell with flashes. He found that this attack was very effective, and Cell kept dodging the lightning bolts. Every flash of these lightning bolts that Li Su uses can hit the Cell. Cell was continuously injured by Li Su's attack. It started to panic a little, and it started to run away continuously. At this time, Li Su used Kaioken, and then used teleport. He quickly came to Cell's side. His hands flickered. Li Su watched the Cell keep running away. Li Su quickly used flashing to catch up. At this time, Li Su's flickering reached the maximum. His speed was more than twice as fast as usual, and he soon came to Cell's side. Li Su kept chasing around Cell, and soon, Li Su chased Cell into the ocean.
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.